Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Live Show, Week 12 game-by-game recap edition. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great night to be great. It's a great night to break down all of the utilization, all the stars, all the fades, all the stuff that happened during the course of another eventful NFL Sunday. So I believe Jahmyr Gibbs is finally done scoring fantasy points. So Mr. Dwain, we can get started. Happy Sunday night.
Happy Sunday night. I don't know if he's quite done yet. I was just talking to producer Mick before the show, and unfortunately he did run into Jahmyr Gibbs in his home league, so brutal. That's like 2 superstar performances in one, or 3 really good players just covered by Jahmyr Gibbs by himself.
I don't know about you, Dwayne, but I'm in way too many leagues to actually be sweating them throughout the day. But I'll take a time after maybe the 1 o'clock slate's over to look, and this is those 3 or 4 seconds where you're who is on your team, and you're like, okay, I scored some points, and then you just kind of open up the app and you see the 50 bomb or whatever, and it's just like, oh, so much for that.
Yep, that game's over. Just scroll to the next team you have.
Exactly. So just, a pure numb feeling as everything happens throughout the day, good and bad. Who can be certain what actually is real in this world anyway? But regardless of all that, guys, again, going through 13 games on this lovely Sunday night, just trying to help make you, a scholar, a little bit better at fantasy football and hopefully have some fun along the way. So we appreciate you tuning in. And with that, let's rewind the clocks all the way back to Thursday night when we had the Texans take down the Bills, 23-19, Houston winning outright as 5-point dogs. The under cashed at 44.5. So just 261 total yards of offense, but dang it, Dwain, all Davis Mills in that long neck of his does is win football games, 153 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Found Jaden Higgins, found Christian Kirk. Unfortunately, did not find one at Nico Collins. So what did we see from the wide receiver room, and are you at all concerned about the target discrepancy between Higgins and Nico?
No, man, look, we know how this goes. Nico's a really good player. These sort of things happen. You just kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. You're moving on. You're starting Nico Collins. But I do think that Jaden Higgins is the biggest storyline, from this team. He gave you 13.8 PPR points. He had a 78 utilization score. That was a season high. 68% route participation, season high. 32% target share, season high. That was 9 targets and 120 air yards. So he looks, they're still rotating. We'd rather see an 85% route participation, but over the last 4 games, Ian, his routes have gone from 43% to 53 to 57 to 68%. Targets have gone from 3 to 16 to 18 to 32%. So we talk a lot about some of these rookies that break out in the second half of the year. Wide receivers that go in round 2 are some of the best breakout candidates for that. So nice to see Higgins getting going. Really good trend. I will say this, available in 78% of Yahoo leagues right now. So those of you playing in deeper leagues, Higgins definitely a player we want to have on our rosters. If you guys are playing in one of these 8-teamers, you don't really have to worry about it too much. But a lot of you, right? If you're listening to this show at this time of night, you might be in a sicko league.
Sure seems to be passing the eye test, too. I mean, I know Dane Brugler kind of gave him an early career Nico Collins comp coming out, and you can see it with the way he's, again, able to break off some of these routes. Pretty rare to see a man that big be able to sink those hips like that. So good stuff there from Higgins. Unfortunately, not a great game from Dalton Schultz, 8 scoreless yards out there. We knew coming in it was going to be a tough matchup, though, against the Bills. Over in the running back room, Dwain, another dominant usage performance from Woody Marks, but sadly, another fairly inefficient day at the office. It wasn't horrible, 74 rushing yards on 16 carries. Seemed like he was going to have a chance or two to actually get touches near the goal line. Ended up getting taken out of the game for Nick Chubb, though. So just unfortunate, but we are seeing the usage move in the right direction. Unfortunately, just haven't gotten the fantasy points yet.
Yeah, only 7.9 PPR points in this game. But to your point, 73% of the snaps, 67% of the rushing attempts. He had 16 totes on Thursday night. 52% route participation. Still not getting used that much in the passing game, Ian, which I think is probably the thing that surprises us the most. Knowing his profile coming out of college, he was a prolific receiver out of the backfield. Did have the 1 carry that he didn't get inside the 5-yard line, but chill out, guys. Still at 83%. And if you look at him over the last 3 games, he's had 5 of the 6 attempts inside the 5-yard line. So I do think the fantasy points are going to flow eventually, but it's the Texans offensive line, not super great. We don't think Marks is a superstar or anything, but at this point, I don't know how we don't think he's the clear cut running back 1 for this team the rest of the way. And he's going to have games where he's going to score the fantasy points.
Again, great win for the Texans, and it has now been 1,058 days since Davis Mills has lost a start. Could actually go quite longer, Dwayne, because I'm pretty sure CJ Stroud is going to be back from that concussion protocol ahead of next week's matchup against the Colts. Over with the Bills, very, very tough, obviously, evening for Josh Allen and company. He took a career-high 8 sacks. I don't want to accuse anyone of taking any performance-enhancing drugs, Dwayne, but I know a lot of NFL players like to take, the smelling salts. I'm wondering if this Texans defense is on a bunch of rabies, man, because just the way they were flying around the ball all game long. I knew Will Anderson had that in him, and he was a game breaker, but man, just the physicality level through the roof, particularly for a Thursday night football game. So, Khalil Shakir managed 110 yards, did lose a fumble. James Cook had 116 yards and a touchdown. That was actually a very cool 45-yard run earlier in the game, but just overall didn't see the Bills offense clicking, and I'm more inclined just to say, man, that Texans defense is sick than anything. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway here. The Texans defense is absolutely legit. I think at some point I would like to order some of those smelling salts, Ian, and just like while my wife's still asleep, just put one in front of her nose and see what happens. You have to do it with me. We will both do it on the same day. You're like, nah, I'm out on that. Yeah, nothing to add here. Complete rotation in the wide receiver room other than Khalil Shakir. Gabe Davis was number 2 in routes, Ian. How about that? 61% route participation for Gabe Davis, with Keon Coleman inactive again.
I know it really is. Well, I mean, he literally scored like a pretty sick 35-yard touchdown the week before. And it just goes to show that, everything you do on the field does not necessarily matter at all when you talk to actual football decision makers. So Bills could be in Pittsburgh next week. And as we've kind of seen throughout the season, could be a get right spot of sorts for those wide receivers if we can ever figure out who they are. Also hope that Dalton Kincaid gets healthy soon. Continues to be a pretty uninspiring rotation with Dawson Knox and Jackson Halls. Let's move on to Sunday. We had the Ravens take down the Jets 23-10. New York did cover as 14-point dogs. The under cash here of 44.5. So this was not a blowout, though, by any stretch of the imagination, guys. In fact, the Jets were leading 7-3 at halftime before Lamar Jackson and company got back going. So still wasn't exactly a breakthrough game from Lamar Jackson. He came back from that hamstring injury, shredded the Dolphins secondary really over the course of like 15 minutes of game time, but has left quite a bit to be desired since, Dwayne. We've now seen Lamar again since returning from that injury, rushed for under 15 yards in 3 of 4 games. Last season, he rushed for at least 15 yards in all but one game, and that was a 19-game sample size. So he said after the game that the injuries aren't impacting him. Let me say this, Dwayne. I don't believe him.
Yeah, I don't believe him either. I had one note written on the Ravens, and it is Lamar, 7 for 11 rushing. What is going on? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Obviously, the injuries are an impact, and it's impacting his fantasy performances over the last 4. You mentioned that first game back, gave you 25.6 fantasy points. Then he gave you 16.6. It's like, okay, fine. That's low for Lamar, but you can live with it. Right. The last 2 games, 4.7 and 7.2 fantasy points. However, will any of us have the guts to remove Lamar from our top 5 rankings? Probably not. Ian's like, I might.
No, I don't think so. Because even this last week, man, Drake May had the dream spot, and I still couldn't, move him quite ahead of Lamar. I know even some of you guys were able to do that. So it's unfortunate. I will say he started to look back to himself the second game back after that Dolphins game, because that was a Thursday night game, that an extra long week. They were playing the Vikings, and he ran a couple times and it looked good. Last week he had the Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, he had the Wednesday missed practice with a knee. This last week it was an ankle injury. Yeah. So I do think there's just, a variety of issues, Dwayne. It was the hamstring at first, but now it's just one thing after another adding up.
Yeah, I think that's it. So we'll see where we land on him in the ranks. I've brought him down in his rushing projection, just basically until we see him get going again. I didn't realize I needed to bring it down to 15 yards. I've been keeping him right around 30. And honestly, that's where the props have been coming in as well. So the market's really in the same spot. So we'll see what it looks like this week. Slight downgrade for Lamar, but if you have him, man, you're just rolling with Lamar Jackson.
And the thing is, I'll update the stats soon, but I remember looking at this around week 7 or 8. He had been out for a bit, but I was just seeing, what quarterbacks average fantasy points per game from just passing production. And only Stafford was ahead of Lamar. That's the thing. Even when he doesn't run, we can still get a ton of scores through the air. Unfortunately, none of them to Mr. Zay Flowers. The streak continues, has not caught a touchdown since week freaking 1. That said, Dwayne caught 5 of 6 targets for 58 yards and also chipped in 11 on the ground. As things stand right now, still got Monday Night Football and what's left of Sunday Night Football, but Zay Flowers with 11.9 PPR points will now have finished between the wide receiver 23 and the wide receiver 32 in all but one game since week 2, Dwayne. So again, he's not blowing up. He had the huge week 1. He had one massive dud in there, and every other other time, he has just been a dirt average wide receiver 3, basically like what we think Wan'Dale Robinson is supposed to be when he's not, going absolutely nuclear for days like today. So just kind of unfortunate, Dwayne. And as much as I keep trying to push him up into the wide receiver 2 ranks, probably got to treat the guy as a wide receiver 3 that he's been forming as, for the last 3 months.
Yeah, look, I mean, and I know why you keep pushing him up, because like the targets are there.
Man.
He's a good player. When you watch Zay Flowers, you just see a good player on film. There's no doubt about it. But we're in a run first offense, especially this version of the Ravens offense. They dropped back to pass 23 times today. That was it. Derrick Henry had 21 carries by himself, right? So he nearly matched the number of dropbacks just with his carries. So we're getting the targets, just a run-heavy team, and they continue today. Decent average depth of target today at 8.8, but we know we just have these games where they just, tether him to the line of scrimmage for whatever reason. So, look, Flowers is eventually going to have a blow-up game. He's going to score more. He's going to score touchdowns before the season's over. I'll put my Davis Mills neck out on the line for that one, Ian, and say that he's going to score some touchdowns down the stretch. I just, we can't say that it's going to be a ton of them.
I just think now that I've admitted that I'm going to drop him in the ranks, we know that he'll probably score a touchdown here next Thursday night.
That's what you need to do to get him going. Do it.
There we go. That's how fantasy football works, ladies and mostly gentlemen. But otherwise, guys, not too much to go over here. Mark Andrews, 9 scoreless yards. Unfortunately, couldn't get that touchdown he's managed in recent weeks. Did draw 1 defensive pass interference pony for 34 yards. You can imagine what it'd be like if we live in the world where those actually counted for fantasy points. As Dwayne mentioned, Derrick Henry, 21 carries, just 64 yards, but that's okay when 2 of them went for touchdowns. Again, going to be locked in the lineups of all shapes and sizes here next week against the Bengals, aka the run defense that we want to attack the most. Only other final note was DeAndre Hopkins was open for what should have been a 16-yard touchdown. Unfortunately, Lamar did sail that one. Over with the Jets, just 282 total yards of offense. Tyrod was better than Justin Fields. I mean, let's face it, that was not a very high bar to clear, but he was better. So 222 yards, honestly got John Mechie going a little bit, Dwayne, which was fun to see. Caught 6 of 7 targets for 65 yards and a score. Also had our guy A.D. Mitchell continuing to dominate targets, had 7 of his own, 153 unrealized air yards on the week. That was the second most to only Trey Tucker. So look, we're not going to be able to trust these guys in terms of, 10-team, probably even a lot of 12-team leagues as legit wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. But do you think there's a chance, Dwayne, if we see Garrett Wilson continue to miss time, that we could see Mechie and Mitchell at least become like flex-worthy wide receiver 4s?
Yeah, I do. We're going to, like you said, it's going to be hard to get super confident about them, but they both moved up this week. They both moved up last week. So, I mean, their roles are expanding. And at this point, if you're the Jets, you're 2-9. Like, is there really a reason to bring Garrett Wilson back this year? Like,
probably not.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Mechie, like you mentioned, 18.5 PPR points today, 26% target share. And then you had Mitchell with only 6.2, but you mentioned it, 182 air yards. I think you said 153 of those were unrealized air yards. Dude had a 26 average depth of target. Mechie had a 4.6. So one was working the line of scrimmage, and the other one was running down the field the whole game. And the thing with Mitchell, again, guys, we know he's a boom bust player. But like he could land in that range, Ian, if we don't get Garrett Wilson back, similar to Alec Pierce, similar to Christian Watson. We've got a lot of guys kind of in that mix where he can score the long play at any time. And he's getting more targets, honestly, than those guys right now. Not his offense isn't as good. We'll talk more about Christian Watson here in just a little bit. But yes, I do think those guys can get into the wide receiver 4 conversation.
Can't quit the guy, Dwayne. I refuse to quit the guy. Just had like a 20-yard gain on a dig, and he just continues to create separation.
Right away.
Well, right away.
Yeah.
I'm going down with the ship. A.D. Mitchell will be a good football player at some point this millennial. You guys can.
Last thing, Ian, on the receiving front is we did see Mason Taylor back in a full-time role, 79% routes. Wasn't able to score you guys any fantasy points, but we'd seen him in a part-time role the previous 2 weeks. So little bounce back game, at least from a route participation standpoint.
Otherwise, typical dominant utilization for Breece Hall. Did clear 100 total yards, 75 of which came from receiving. Unfortunately, did lose a fumble. Now has 8 over the past 2 seasons. That is the second most in the NFL, behind only Ramondre Stevenson. More than Kyron Williams, not the leaderboard that you want to be ahead of him on, Dwayne, but I'm sure it won't really matter when we look ahead to the Jets' next matchup against the Falcons here in week 13. Moving right along, we had the Chiefs take down the Colts 23-20 in overtime, and they did cover us 3.5-point favorites. Remember, good teams win, great teams cover, so step it up, Kansas City. The under did cash at 49.5, and it was getting dicey, man. Again, 5-5 Chiefs back against the wall going into this game, and they were down 20-9 early in the fourth quarter, but Mahomes was able to put his Superman cape on enough to go ahead and get that victory. So 252 yards, no scores, and one interception through the air for Mahomes. Did chip in 30 rushing yards, something that we honestly haven't seen as much of in recent weeks. I do think the pressure of the game and just the moment overall probably did compel him to run the ball just a little bit more. So did take 4 sacks out there. They actually lost their guard Trey Smith to an ankle injury. We'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, when we have seen Mahomes look a little bit more mortal, usually gone hand in hand with some O-line injuries. So Kareem Hunt, though, Dwain, really dominating usage here. 33 touches, had 104 yards on the ground, 26 more receiving, and scored a touchdown. Did lose a fumble, but 8 missed tackles forced. I don't think Kareem Hunt's going to be completely giving up a job when Isaiah Pacheco's back. I'm not saying Hunt's going to keep being usable, but I don't know, man. I think with the way this offense isn't necessarily skyrocketing, but I don't think Kareem Hunt has done all that much to just completely lose a job to Pacheco. Am I crazy here?
No, I mean, and it was a split before. I mean, we saw a brief little moment there where it looked like Pacheco was starting to pull away from Kareem Hunt. And you know how these things go. The injury strikes just at the right time. Now Kareem Hunt has played well, gave you 20 PPR points today, 81% of the rushing attempts. So yeah, I think it'll be a split when the two of whenever we do see Isaiah Pacheco return. And who knows? Because we thought Pacheco was going to return last week, and then in the middle of the week, it all of a sudden it was like, nope, he's not coming back again. So we really don't have any. I haven't seen any new news as far as if he re-aggravated something. So we'll have to keep an eye on it next week. But if we do have another game without Pacheco, we have the Chiefs playing the Dallas Cowboys this next week, who've been better against the run, over these last couple of games. But Kareem Hunt would be a low-end running back 2, mid-range running back 2, somewhere in there. No teams on bye this week, so probably more of a low-end running back 2.
Also note the Chiefs went ahead and signed former Texan Dameon Pierce out here, look, I don't think that's going to make a big impact for Hunt or Pacheco, but I do think it's one more piece of evidence, Dwayne, that the featured role that many want for Brashard Smith likely not come to fruition. Good receiving back, for sure. 31 yards today, had another 22 yards nullified on a blindside block and everything, but I don't know, Dwayne, you and me are in some pretty deep leagues. If we still have Brashard Smith and then he benches out there, I think it's okay if we go ahead and cut ties at this point.
Yeah, I mean, in the deeper leagues, like it just depends on what you're going after, but he's definitely not a must hold anymore. I agree with you on the Dameon Pierce thing. And I feel like Dameon Pierce getting playing time over CEH would be nice. Like CEH just still does not look very good.
Otherwise, Rashee Rice, 141 yards, caught 8 of 12 targets. Could have had a bigger day, had an arguable drop, depending on how you kind of feel about that metric, on a little fade in the end zone. And then on the next play, caught one, but unfortunately, his butt was already sitting out of bounds. Yeah. So again, sheeshy performance, but man, you scored 22 fantasy points and you get over it. Okay, Rashee Rice, fantasy managers, he's still doing his thing for you. One of just 4 wide receivers on the season, averaging north of 20 PPR points per game. Did you see anything extra on the injury, Dwayne? I saw one source calling a hamstring, another one just saying it was a cramp. It did seem like he got up a little bit gingerly and kind of hit the turf there on that last catch of the game.
I didn't see anything else, but Miss McFarland did call it a cramp. Okay. Now, she's not a doctor. She's a hairstylist. So you guys can take that for what it's worth, but she's a massive Chiefs fan. So she just wants it to be a cramp.
Well, I, for one, hope that Mrs. McFarland is 100% correct in her initial diagnosis. Otherwise, good to see Xavier Worthy finally catch a downfield pass there in overtime. Still only had 59 yards. Isn't changing my opinion of him being more of a boomer bust. Wide receiver 3 moving forward, but hey, good play by him. Also note Travis Kelce had a short 4-yard touchdown run because Andy Reid is addicted to doing shenanigans inside the 5-yard line. Nullified on what I thought was a pretty bad face mask call. Yeah. So the tackle actually had his hand more so underneath the helmet versus the face mask. And then finally, another iffy sheeshy moment from a Chiefs tight end. Noah Gray drop what could have been a 40-yard touchdown down the sideline after the defender somehow didn't manage to tip the pass. So any takeaways with this wide receiver or tight end room, Dwayne?
No, nothing big here. Worthy, I think, though, is more of a wide receiver 4 than a wide receiver 3. Yeah. And we've got all the teams available. It's so boom busty and really been more busty, not boomy. So
I was about to say, I mean, like just right now, don't care about the matchup, but like Alec Pierce, Christian Watson, Xavier Worthy, I think I prefer Pierce and Watson.
Yeah, I think so too right now. We're going to get to the other guys here, especially Watson in a second, but I agree with you.
As Dwayne mentioned, Turkey Day, Cowboys, Chiefs. Get your, I would say, popcorn. Get your cranberry sauce ready for that one. Over with the Colts, just 255 total yards of offense, had 11 penalties for 83 yards. Things started off fine, man. I saw a graphic during the game where Daniel Jones started 16 for 20, but then I think only went 3 for 11 after. So he did limit the mistakes, which was, again, with the huge thing. Like he had more sacks, fumbles, and interceptions in their last 2 games before the bye versus the first 8 games of the season. So the fact he didn't take any sacks, didn't throw a pick, didn't have any fumbles was good to see. Had at least 1 interception dropped out there, so it wasn't the cleanest performance, but 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not thrilled by this performance, Dwayne, but for me, even though they were playing a little bit scared, just a 4.5 yard average target there from Jones, it was lowest on the week. They couldn't really run the ball in this one, which I don't expect to happen too much moving forward. And again, just the fact that Jones was able to take a step back, have a lead in Arrowhead for the majority of this game. Like, I still think this Colts offense, even if they're not going to resemble the freaking 99 Rams record-breaking unit they were for the first 7-8 weeks of the year, I still think this is a very good offense in the year 2025.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's just a very diverse offense. Shane Steichen has got a great scheme going. They can spread it around, to 3 or 4 different guys in the passing game. You got to worry about JT. Pittman, great possession receiver. Tyler Warren, great guy underneath the coverage, can sometimes hit the deep play. They move him around the formation. Josh Downs, didn't get used that much today. Normal 42% route participation. Sorry, Josh Downs. 43% targets per route run. Just another day at the office for Josh Downs. He gets the targets while he's out there. But you got to deal with JT as well. So, and then Alec Pierce can take the top off of a defense. So it's still a team really that can show up and beat any other team on any given Sunday, in my opinion. Big win for the Chiefs though today.
Yeah. Season-saving win, you could even say. So, yeah, leading receiver for the Colts was none other than Ashton Dulin. Had a 48-yard catch on a cool little design from Steichen on a 3rd and short. Basically did that little tight end leak route, but it was actually a fast wide receiver instead of a slow tight end. So Pittman did catch 1 touchdown from the group. We had Drew Ogletree with the other one. I'm sure that helped a ton of people out there. Any takeaways on this wide receiver room, Dwayne? Because, again, I'm more inclined to say, pretty tough matchup. I would expect more fireworks in next week's matchup. I will not expect them because they're playing the Texans next week, but in an easier matchup down the road, I'll have more confidence in this passing game.
No takeaways. It's the normal rotation that we've seen from the Colts. You've got a diverse offense. Didn't throw for a lot of yards today, so it was hard for all these guys to really do much in fantasy.
And with that, let's move on to the Seahawks taking down the Titans, 30 versus 24. The Titans did cover as 12.5-point dogs, overcashing this one at 41.5. So really wasn't this close. The Seahawks were up by 2 to 3 scores for pretty much the entire game up until the final minute. But kudos to Cam Ward and company for, again, never saying quit in this one. So just 22 minutes and 35 seconds time possession here for the Seahawks. Sam Darnold, 244 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, the majority of which just continued to go straight through Jackson Smith and Jigba. Caught 8 of 10 targets for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. I just don't get Dwayne because JSN, he's incredible. You can't say enough great things about this guy. He's already got over 1,300 yards. He could legit push for 2,000 yards in a season, which is unbelievable. But both of his catches that went over 50 yards, how are we getting one-on-one matchups with the safety? Is it really just that much of a respect to Clint Kubiak? And maybe it is, but that part of the game just shocked me, man.
Yeah, I think it's just because the Seahawks run the ball so much. I mean, this is the lowest drop back rate over expected team in the NFL. I mean, so they're going to pound the rock, even though it's not like we have a fantasy superstar on the ground. They run the ball enough that defenses have to respect it. Everything with the pass game looks like the run game, a lot of heavy personnel. They just do a lot of great things schematically. And then I think JSN, he's an absolute baller. And Sam Darnold, man, like who knows how many one-on-ones he's really getting in a game. I've watched a lot of JSN film, but I haven't charted that specifically. It would be interesting to see, but it feels like anytime he gets it, Darnold is throwing to him. And here's the thing. He throws to him so much that he's just going to, by luck, be already targeting JSN when he happens to get the one-on-one matchup. Right. He had 40% target share today.
Dude's certainly open all the time. And even when he's not open, he just sticks one mid out there and grabs it like we saw last week as well. So again,
Garrett Wilson knew a long time ago, Ian. Like he knew this was the dude.
Yeah, that was, I still remember them saying that Heartline was like, oh yeah, but I will say they had Marvin Harrison Jr. pretty high up in that list as well, Dwayne. That part still needs to be inspected. We'll get to the Cardinals here in a little bit, but again, amazing stuff from JSN, really making his case for offensive player of the year. Unfortunately, just with him really soaking up all the passing yards and targets in Seattle. Tough to really see Rashid Shaheed, who goose-egged as a receiver, did have 5 rushing yards. Never good for my helicopter play, guys, when I'm looking at the punt return yards to see if I can scrape away a joke in that one. So still maintain Shaheed is quite quite good at football. Maybe he can get a boom at some point with Torrey Horton now on IR, but man, it's not going to be anything
They
consistent
did
that we can feel good about.
They did use more 3 wide receiver stuff again this week. Last week they did, but we just really had no way of knowing why, just because they were trailing, right? So it's normal to have to use your 3 wide receiver sets. But today in a game where they were leading, you still had Shaheed at a 70% route participation, 85% for Kupp. Obviously, JSN led the way at 96%. So getting out there on the field, didn't do anything, not trustable in lineups right now, but he is a playmaker. He had a 26 average depth of target again today. So they're using a little more 3 wide receivers with Shaheed on the team.
I think a similar sentiment for AJ Barner. Like, this dude has flashed a lot this year. I do think he could be a great long-term NFL tight end, but as we saw today, as great as he might be in real life, just 2 catches for 18 scoreless yards, going to continue to be touchdown dependent. And an offense that does score quite a few touchdowns. So I'm not saying, you can't ever start the dude, but just wouldn't exactly count on top 12 treatment moving forward. That said, Dwayne, I buried the lead here. Let's face it. The running back rotation here is the major takeaway in fantasy football land. Kenneth Walker putting another quality data point on the table in terms of his utilization, albeit it'd be pretty cool if he could, score an extra touchdown or 2 here one of these days.
Yeah, look, snaps over the last 3 games for Walker, 41%, 51%, and 64%. So we've got a nice little 3-week trend going, moving up. 13.1 PPR points today, like you said, didn't exactly smash, but had 58% of the rushing attempts on the day. 59% route participation. So really, led the way and continues to distance himself from Zach Charbonnet, at least over this last month or so.
And I'm saying this, guys, they don't have like smash matchups necessarily the rest of the way, but next week they get the Vikings, then they get the Falcons, then they have the Colts and Rams, and then it's the Panthers. So just Vikings, Falcons, and Panthers, they could realistically win those games by 30. We've seen the Seahawks just completely stomp some teams. And then the Colts and Rams, like, who knows? Maybe we get some fantasy-friendly shootouts out there. I know it didn't happen the last time they faced the Rams, but again, could be a situation where haven't quite gotten those fantasy points from Walker yet. Maybe, just maybe, he is saving the best for last. Did continue to look good out there. Had 6 missed tackles forced on the day. That is a very quality number. Over with the Tennessee Titans, again, Cam Ward is on my list. Maybe I can't do it this week with Thanksgiving. Maybe I can. Maybe I'll just man up and freaking do it, Dwayne. But I want to make a cut up with this guy because legit, he has like 2 minutes of just tight window downfield throws where I truly do believe in this dude. We got to give him some weapons. We got to give him a new coach. We got to give him an offensive line. There are a lot of things that Cam Ward needs ahead of 2026. So maybe it's going to be a 2-year project. But again, just really good to see some of these high-level throws he puts on tape and a never quit attitude. I mean, this is not the first time they've been in a game that really they had no business being this close and at the end. Obviously, that just fever dream of a Cardinals when they had a month or 2 ago. But I will say the one really good thing that could separate him eventually in Fantasyland once we fix some of those problems. So I'm not saying to shoot Cam Ward up the ranks, but 37 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground, Dwayne. It's never been about Cam Ward's like ability to move. We know this dude's got a little bit of twitch to him, but it's been more so his willingness because he's keeping his eyes downfield, which is a good thing for a young passer to want. But that was enlightening to me, man. Because again, we saw it last year with Baker. We see the pocket quarterbacks, and when they can give you 20 to 30 rushing yards and a touchdown every now and then on the ground, that is huge over the course of a 17-game season.
Yeah, he gave you 23.9 PPR points today, so he outscored Sam Darnold in fantasy. He's given you 33 and 37 rushing yards in the last 2 games. So Ward's coming alive, like you said. Like, are we going to be able to really push him up the ranks? Not a lot, but if he's going to continue to run around like this, like, he can be more of a mid-range QB2 Ian that gives you these QB1 boom games. So very interested to watch the rest of the season with Cam Ward because he's definitely playing better than he did early in the year.
Backfield continues to largely be a dumpster fire together. I will say Tajay Spears, though, remains very good at football. For 6 more tackles avoided, I should say, today. Continues to be a very good handcuff to keep on that bench, but can't feel good about them in the meantime. Otherwise, man, just the big story here is Chimere Dike caught 5 of 7 targets for 44 yards and a touchdown. Also chipped in another return touchdown. This one a 90-yard electric punt return. So, yeah, man, a situation where really he's flashed throughout this year. We're not sure how long A.O. Manor is going to be out, but missing a whole week of practice with a hamstring injury obviously isn't promising. And even when A.O. Manor was playing, man, it's not like he was exactly preventing DK. So had him as a wide receiver for this week. It's the Titans. Let's not get too carried away. But just looking ahead to week 13, Dwayne, they're facing the Jaguars who have been without Jordan Lewis. Like, I could see DK in full PPR, I don't know, doing like a poor man's Amon-Ra impression.
Yeah, we've talked about him a few times, this season. 21.4 PPR points today. He also had the punt return for a touchdown, so that helped him out there. But yeah, I mean, he looks good with the ball in his hands. He continues to get the playing time, to your point. It's not like Io Manor was a target hog when he was around. Van Jefferson, we know, is a guy that can occasionally come up with a game, but he's not
Van Jefferson.
traditionally. Yeah, Van Jefferson. Yeah, historically, Van Jefferson has not been somebody that's, been a high end target earner. So, yeah, I think DK is in that wide receiver 4 conversation the rest of the way. We also saw the rookie Xavier Restrepo. He worked as the wide receiver 4 today. 43% targets per route run. So he was not out there a lot, but when he was, man, the dude was getting targeted quite often. And I don't know, man, if I'm the Titans, let's just look at all the young guys. What's the point in even playing Van Jefferson at this point with where you are in your season? But we don't get to make those calls, Ian. Those come down to what the coaches want to do.
If any friends or family of Van Jefferson happen to be listening, we do apologize. I'm sure Van is a very nice guy, but we're shooting for some of these youngins out here. I will note that Restrepo did get tackled just short of the goal line, did not score on the same drive. I believe that touchdown went to DK. So good stuff there, Mr. Dwain. Let's move on to an NFC North battle. The Green Bay Packers took down the Vikings 23-6 in Lambeau. Green Bay covered with ease as a 6.5 point home favorite, under cash at 41.5. Another one that wasn't overly competitive. Packers held a 2+ score lead for most of the second half of the game, and honestly kind of just needed to go ahead and just lean on Micah Parsons in that defense because the offense wasn't exactly lighting up the scoreboard. Just 288 total yards. Jordan Love's pretty banged up, man. We even got the report, I believe, from Tom Pelissero before the game about that left AC joint, saying that if it was on his right arm, it'd probably be severe enough that he wouldn't be able to play. Even saw on the initial touchdown to Emmanuel Wilson that Jordan Love was handing off with his right hand, but in reverse, he wasn't willing to actually just do normal handoffs. So not great there. And honestly, because of that, I would kind of pump the brakes on expecting Love to have these 35, 40 pass attempt games if Green Bay can at all help it. And at least for one day, Dwayne, they could help because Emmanuel Wilson, the running back y'all in Green Bay behind Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, 26.5 PPR points today for Emmanuel Wilson. 72% of the rushing attempts. The dude carried the ball 28 times. Ian, he had 100% of the carries inside the 5, which was 3 on the day. Was not using the passing game, though. 13% route participation. It was Brooks that they turned to in that capacity. So Brooks, when I looked at this, I was kind of surprised. I thought it was going to be like Emmanuel Wilson, 70% of the snaps. It was 55%, and Brooks was at 45%. But he's the guy they're loading up on the ground, so he's getting all the work that Josh Jacobs leaves behind if Jacobs does miss another game. Sound like Jacobs was very close to playing on this one. It came down to being a game time decision. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you. But if we get another game where we don't have Josh Jacobs for some reason, yes, I think Emmanuel Wilson's in that mid-range running back 2 territory. Ian obviously gives you running back 1 upside.
Jacobs was saying with the nature of his knee injury, he thought his worst case scenario was missing this game and then returning for Thanksgiving here against the Lions. So it is a quick turnaround, but I think that was probably, in the back of their minds when they decided not to play Jacobs in this one at all. Otherwise, Christian Watson, team high 49 receiving yards. Romeo Doubs did have 84 unrealized air yards, so was getting the downfield opportunity, just couldn't make much with it. Did see Dontavian Wicks flash, had a nice 18-yard catch down the 1-yard line. Did he have a full-time role with Matthew Golden out today, Dwayne?
Well, 79%. So yeah, I mean, it was really the 3 guys. It was Watson at 92% route participation. So his involvement just continues to climb. He had a 32% target share today. Christian Watson was 7 targets, 87 air yards. So again, just continues to come back very quickly, from the injury. Only 9.9 PPR points today. And like Ian said, we've got some concerns here about Jordan Love and the injury. Probably need some game scripts to push things here. But Watson is the guy, Ian, that whether it's a short, intermediate, deep throw, he can make plays on all of them. So if I had to pick, a wide receiver that I wanted to roster the rest of the way, I really think it's him and Dobbs. Wicks was the wide receiver 3 today, 79% of the routes, 19% target share. So it's those 3 guys. Did not have Matthew Golden today, guys. He was out despite playing last week after injuring his shoulder the week before that. So didn't hear anything specifically if he re-aggravated anything or if that was just a coach's decision or maybe they just thought, probably not healthy enough to be playing. So we'll wait to hear more on that. And the tight end room, just a complete rotation. Fitzpatrick actually led the way with a 50% route participation.
Yeah, listed with the shoulder and wrist injuries, so clearly dealing with quite a bit. We did see an update though over the weekend, Dwayne. Jaden Reed did have his practice window
Yep.
opened. He is back at practice, ramping up to play quote unquote soon. So we'll see what happens there. I would expect it to be Watson, Dobbs, and probably much to the chagrin of a lot of Jaden Reed truthers. Like we're probably just going to see Reed more so in that slot only role. That again, he can make good things out of because he's a great football player. If you
Yeah.
get 5 targets and 3 carries, guess what? He can bust one of those. But I am with you. I think rest of the season, man, God, Dobbs had such a good, nice, 8, 9 weeks, but I probably have to go Watson, Reed, Dobbs.
Yeah,
But
and look,
never gonna be in the
it's
top
gonna
24.
yeah, I think Watson, the main thing is we just know he's such a playmaker, right? So if
Yeah.
he continues to get this kind of playing time and they're going to give him targets like what we've seen over the last 2 games, I mean, we just know he can do the most with those opportunities. But I'll say, like, Dobbs is still having a good year. He's at a career high target share, playing well. Only had a 71% route participation today, so he's still dealing with some injuries and stuff himself. So I'm not completely out on Dobbs. Again, think he's still having a really good year. I will say, like, Reed is interesting just overall for the offense because losing Tucker Kraft, he was just such an amazing playmaker for the team. And even though you and I know Jaden Reed will probably be stuck in a role that everybody in fantasy will be mad about, like with a 60% route participation, he'll be the Josh Downs of the Green Bay Packers. Like, man, when the guy gets the ball in his hands, it's more from a pure football perspective. Like, he'll be a big get to get back in the offense because of what he can do after the catch.
Again, great real life problem for the Packers to have. Too many mouths to feed in the wide receiver room. Just again, thinking that we're probably going to see them more so settle in as wide receiver 3s, as opposed to people who are trying to actively force into starting lineups. Meanwhile, for the Vikings, just 145 total yards of offense, only 2 for 9 on third down. You add all that together, and JJ McCarthy threw for just 87 yards and 2 picks. There were some good throws early. There have been good throws in every start. The problem is there's a whole lot of horrific throws, and when you really add those together, you don't get a functional NFL QB. So it's not all his fault. 48% pressure rate, took 5 sacks. They honestly lost in this one, both Christian Darrisaw and Donovan Jackson. So it's an offensive line that already hasn't exactly, I think, been considered one of the league's best. And now when you take away multiple starters from this or any group, it's not going to help matters. But yeah, Dwayne, I mean, again, looking ahead of next week's matchup against Seattle, I mean, this is another game of Justin Jefferson. He's probably going to finish as a wide receiver 4 catches, 48 yards. Like, we ranked him wide receiver 12, 13. He did outperform Jameson Williams, so you guys are welcome there. I proved that you could move him down a little bit, but I think that was more of a Jameson Williams problem. I mean, man, Dwayne, no buys. Is Justin Jefferson going to be a top 20 wide receiver in week 13?
I mean, we've got our fingers crossed for it. That's how bad this is. Shout out to Anthony Amico, AMICSTA Amixta on Twitter, guys. JJ McCarthy now ranks Ian 851 out of 852 qualified quarterbacks going back to 2000 in EPA per dropback. 851 out of 852. The only player below McCarthy.
I guess.
Yes.
Is it Achilles Smith?
No, that's a good guess, though. It's Jamarcus Russell. So you had the time frame right.
Yeah.
You had the time frame right. Yeah. So, yeah, man, McCarthy just off to a brutal start to his career.
Yeah, I honestly think that sums up for the passing game. It's very depressing. I'd rather not spend more time on it if you guys are okay with that. In the backfield, Dwayne, did we see the usage shrink? Because, again, Aaron Jones still dominating receiving, but I just saw the 9 carries versus 8 for Jordan Mason.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to look. I haven't been able to look to see if like this was like one drive where Mason happened to be the guy on the field. He rotates it on the 3rd or 4th drive or whatever, and it's maybe their longest drive of the game. The snaps were still clearly there for Aaron Jones at 66% versus 27% for Mason. But like you mentioned, rushing attempts a little tighter, 9 versus 8, so 47 versus 42%. Jones only had a 1 carry lead over him. Still had, to your point, the passing work. 68% routes for Jones, only 8% for Mason. 22% target share. So even though Aaron Jones gave up some of the work, on the ground, he still had 15 opportunities today. But like at this point, like just McCarthy sinking everything. And then you talk about the offensive line issues that you talked about, not ideal either. So not good for Aaron Jones.
It's one of those things, man, where I think Aaron Jones is still showing some juice,
He looks
especially
good.
coming back from the injury. Like, he looks good. So I'm not saying we need to crater him versus someone like Alvin Kamara, but we got to treat this Vikings offense like the Saints. or like, the Jake Browning Bengals or something. It's horrible, man. So again, just keep that in mind as we're kind of going along. But yeah, not looking too good in Minnesota. It is looking much better in Detroit. We saw the Lions take down the Giants today, 34-27 in overtime. Shout out to Jameis Winston and company, though. They did cover as 13.5-point dogs. The over cash with ease here at 50.5. 1,011 total yards of offense combined. Great job, gentlemen. That was a very fun viewing experience here on early Sunday afternoon. Just didn't exactly get, the longest game-winning drive in overtime, though, Dwain. Jahmyr Gibbs says, F all that. I'm running 69 yards into the end zone the first play. He had 3 chunk gains on the afternoon, 49-yard touchdown earlier. Had another 50-yard run like inside the 5. Got tackled. Oh, no. Don't worry, though. They threw the ball to him for the score on the next play. I know sometimes it can be nerdy doing the next-gen stats miles per hour. I see Bill Simmons, be like, oh, my God, it was 21.5. It wasn't 21.65. So, I get that. Okay, and that's a good gimmick by him and everything. But I will just say this. The entire NFL this year, they have 6 ball carrier carries that have reached 22 miles per hour. Jahmyr Gibbs has 3 of them. This guy is so freaking fast, Dwayne. He is so good. And it doesn't seem like that Dave Montgomery is even coming close to impacting this workload, despite what Dan Campbell might say throughout the week.
Yeah, Dan Campbell, he said he would like to get David Montgomery more opportunities. The problem is when Jahmyr Gibbs looks as good as he does and he keeps rewarding you for handing him the ball or throwing him the ball, it's just really tough on Monty right now. Gibbs gave you 55.4 PPR points today. That's just absolutely freaking insane. And then Monty gave you 6.7 PPR points. He had a 34% snap share versus 74% for Gibbs.
As Dwayne said, 55.4. That is tied for the 4th highest mark since 2020. Only performances that were bigger. Tyreek Hill against the Buccaneers, Alvin Kamara on the Christmas Day game when he scored those 6 touchdowns, and then Jamar Chase against the Chiefs in that awesome game as a rookie. So amazing stuff from Jahmyr Gibbs. Also amazing stuff from our one true sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Nice bounce back here. Caught 9 of 13 targets for 149 yards and a touchdown. Hit the Victor Cruz salsa when he scored. That was a nice flashback. Jameson Williams, though, Dwayne, kind of spoiled it in the previous game, but yes, it was a goose egg. He did have a 36-yard catch and run nullified on an ineligible man downfield. So, he's still a good football player, but we're just not quite out of the weeds yet. He was a boomer bust wide receiver 3. We knew that, and he was making a big time habit of booming. This was a bust. So I'm not going to completely say we can't start the guy. Let's face it, they're facing the Packers on Thursday early afternoon. Maybe that game turns into a shootout, but again, I ranked him ahead of Justin Jefferson last week. I thought we were in a comfort zone where we could start looking at a consistent top 15, top 20 player, especially with no buys, man. I think it's back to wide receiver 3 territory for J-Bo.
Right. And we talked about him really in the utilization report last week, being a borderline, wide receiver 2. A high-end wide receiver 3 was probably the most reasonable place to really place him. Obviously, we were leaning a little bit into the recent trend with Dan Campbell calling plays. Those 2 games before, he had that 24% target share over those 2 games. That went away in this one, but yes, he is a wide receiver 3. And look, it wasn't just us. He's been playing better, and it really goes beyond those 2 games with Dan Campbell. So don't overreact to this dud. I know it sucks, and he's got 2 duds in the last 6 games, and all the other games he's been a top 18 wide receiver. So sometimes these sort of things happen like this, guys. Just remember that the variance you see week to week with wide receivers, it does not help you project how they're going to do the next game. And that's the thing that we care about the most. I know it hurts because it's stuck in our head that he's got these 2 goose eggs, in the last 6 games. And that's the thing we think about, but I just wouldn't overreact. I think, mid-range wide receiver 3, we give him a slight downgrade this week, but still going to be in a lot of starting lineups. And again, it wasn't just you and me. It wasn't just fantasy analysts. It isn't just nerds and basements, across America. Odds makers had this guy for a higher receiving line today than AJ Brown. Las Vegas, these people that this is all they do for a living, they also had Jameson Williams in a higher category. And that was to start the week, not after the lines got moved by betting and all those sort of things. So obviously the way books release lines, some of them, they test the market and people actually start betting them, and that's what moves them. And then other books just pick those up. So not saying bettors didn't influence it, because they do right out of the gate. But the point being is if sharp bettors are putting money down on JMO, it's still the same thing, man. The guy was projected for a better game than what he had. He just bombed today.
Dwayne brings up a lot of good points. My response is no excuses, play like a champion. Moving on, Dwayne, to the New York Football Giants.
Fair.
Jameis Winston doing fun Jameis Winston things, 366 yards and not one, but 2 touchdowns through the air. But wait, he wasn't done. Maybe the highlight of the season, a 33-yard trick play touchdown reception where he actually had to force a tackle at the end of it. And then in Jameis fashion, the way only someone like Jameis could, hit a sweet little celly in front of the camera with his teammates. So the boys are buzzing in New York. Jameis had an 11-yard average target depth, the highest of the week. Yeah, he couldn't quite get the victory in the end in overtime, but just a thrilling performance. This is what Jameis is here to do, Dwayne. Competitive, entertaining losses to help your team get a higher draft pick at the end of the day. Like, this is just cinema for Jameis.
Yeah, of course we'll see Jackson Dart back, but it is cinema, for Winston. 31.2 PPR points today, 366 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. He did have the 1 pick, but to your point, 4 attempts rushing for 13 yards and the reception for 33 yards for a touchdown. So if you started Jameis Winston today and you were in need, he rewarded you in an absolute big way. And then on the other side of that, the guys that he's throwing the ball to, Ian, when you have a 10.2 average yards per attempt, you talked about how far he's pushing the ball down the field. Wan'Dale Robinson, 30.6 PPR points today, 14 targets, 174 air yards, 12.5 average depth of target. So, Jameis is going to do Jameis things. I mean, I think going back to 2018 or 19, whatever it was, Ian, when Brashad Perriman, like for the last 4 games of the season, was helping people win fantasy championships. Like, so if Jameis does manage to stay under center, like it just ups it, it gives you upside for these massive kind of spike games. I'm not saying Jackson Dart doesn't, but Jameis, we've just seen him like have these just massive crush moments. He will also break your heart, at times, but to your point, like gonna end up losing the game, but he's still gonna throw for 300 yards.
Yeah, again, just leave Jackson out of this. Jackson's awesome, and you guys should believe that as well. It's just this is a full Jameis propaganda session right now. With Wan'Dale, man, 156 yards and a touchdown on those 14 targets. 106 came in the first quarter. It was a long touchdown courtesy, but another trick play. Pretty nice game plan here from Mike Kafka. Came out swinging as a big-time underdog in Detroit. Appreciate that effort for him. So I was just kind of surprised to see Wan'Dale get all those downfield opportunities and not as much for Darius Slayton, who caught, I believe, the first throw of the game for 23 yards and then did nothing else. Isaiah Hodgins did have a nice touchdown in the back of the end zone. He continues to make plays, but did we actually even see Darius Slayton in a full-time role, Dwayne, in his first game off the hamstring injury?
No, I think he's still dealing with the hammy. 64% routes for him today. Hodgins was at 74%. I think, as Slayton gets healthier, we'll see him more in a full-time role. He's the guy they've paid. I just don't see Hodgins continuing to play over him the rest of the season. I think it's due to the hamstring injury.
Theo Johnson, man, I'm not going to say he's guaranteed to be awesome in the same way as Harold Fannin, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But, man, full season with Dart, I think Theo Johnson could be a tight end 1, Dwayne.
Yeah, he could be. 10.7 PPR points today. That's a low-end tight end 1. That's what that is. That's really, he's been right there at that range the entire season. 74% route participation. He's usually somewhere between 75 and 85, so in a nice little roll here. 15% target share today. He's been closer to 20% over the last month of football. And the nice thing that you have really with all these guys, Ian, is, we like both quarterbacks. Obviously, we like Winston more for the passing upside, but Jackson Dart's had good games too. So I think people are going to get some fantasy points out of the Giants receivers and tight ends. We're not saying they're winning leagues necessarily. More likely to win your league if we have Winston having to start more games just because of the passing upside, the ceiling that's there. But a lot of guys here that are usable.
Finally, Tyron Tracy, Dwayne, big-time waiver wire pickup. We said if you got a clip, you should probably unload it on this guy. Very unfortunate first game afterwards. Devin Singletary is getting used more. We issued a lot of apologies. I'm beginning to think maybe we should have taken a page out of Conor McGregor's old playbook and apologized for absolutely nothing, Dwayne. It sure seems like Tyron Tracy is the lead back in New York right now.
Yeah, man. 16 PPR points today, 71% of the snaps, 54% of the attempts, 20. He had 20 carries today. Now, Devin Singletary had 14. These last 2 games under Mike Kafka, they were running the ball a lot. 24 combined carries between those 2 guys. But inside the 5, he had 3 of the 5 snaps, so 60%. And then he had a 72% route participation. And he had 4 targets today as well. So 24 opportunities for Tyrone Tracy. So 12% target share, played all of the 2-minute offense. Yes, Tyrone Tracy is looking like the running back 1 for the Giants.
And that inside the 5 stuff is good to hear because I know last week Singletary got, I believe, both
Yeah.
the touchdowns there. So that seemingly was more of a 1 week thing, not, the start of a KW3, Zach Charbonnet, committee of madness. So Giants are going to be at New England next Monday night. It's not going to be the easiest, road matchup in the world. I would expect Jackson Dart to be back for that one. Plenty of time to talk about that throughout the rest of the week here on the Fantasy Life Show. Speaking of those Patriots, they took down the Bengals 26-20 in Cincinnati since he did cover as 7.5-point home dog. The under did cash in this one at 50.5. So with the Patriots, kudos, 9 straight wins. Not easy to get one win in the NFL, let alone 9 in a row. Mike Vrabel and company really exceeding expectations in a major way this year. Unfortunately, the going could get even tougher. First round left tackle Will Campbell carted off with a knee injury, and their guard Jared Wilson also got injured in this one. So the one issue, Dwayne, that we've seen with Drake May this year, I kind of talked about it in one of my articles from last week. It's been sacks, and it's been that pressure to sack ratio, okay? As much as he can do great things under pressure because the dude's mobile, he's got a rocket arm, he can make throws on the move. He has not been good at, again, limiting those sacks under pressure. So that'd be my only concern here because, again, even today, 294 yards and a touchdown. It was against the Bengals, and I just did not like the way I was seeing that offensive line function in this one. So, again, they're facing a Giants defense that next week that also isn't exactly blowing anyone away. They've been bad in the ground, but they do have some dogs at that line of scrimmage. And I don't know, man, maybe it's a bit of a moot point because Drake May is just going to be Drake May out here. We are talking about Drake May after all, but just concerns on that offensive line here, Dwayne.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we don't want to see this. We saw what it did to Justin Herbert at times this year. Yeah. So, I mean, you could see something similar for Drake May. Not going to overreact to it. Like he does take the sacks, but also the same thing that makes him take those sacks is the thing that keeps him hanging onto the ball a beat more than making the big play down the field whenever the pressure's right on him. So it's kind of a trade-off we've been living with. 8.4 yards per attempt again today. Like this guy, he's playing amazing football. So we'll see what happens here, with the offensive linemen. We would rather them be healthy, but I don't see this being something where we're suddenly going to be like, oh, Drake May outside of our top 6 quarterbacks the rest of the way. Now we would probably just kind of say, okay, offensive line, like show us that we have to move Drake May down. But until then, we're going to leave him where we got him.
Mentioned the 294 yards. Unfortunately, not many of those did end up going to Stephon Diggs. Caught just 2 or 3 targets for 20 yards. That is the one thing with the Bengals. And look, we had Stephon Diggs ranked highly, mainly just because this was a situation where the Patriots had one of the highest team implied totals out there. But kudos to DJ Turner. He's been holding up that pass defense, specifically against wide receivers. It's been more so running backs and especially tight ends that have torched this defense. And boy, did Hunter Henry do just that. Caught 7 to 10 targets for 115 yards and a touchdown. Had an additional 1-yard touchdown get nullified on an OPI penalty. And then on the next play, got a shovel pass where he got tackled at the 1-yard line. So really was close to having a 2-touchdown day. That said, Dwayne, it was just against, again, the absolute nut matchup. So good to see from Hunter Henry, who, again, have been quiet here for the better part of the last 2 months or so. But I will just say ahead of that Giants matchup, I'm not going to be skyrocketing Hunter Henry inside the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, you buried the lead. It was the Hartitz heater, Hunter Henry, the guy that Ian doesn't make fun of quite. I don't want to say makes fun of, but you rag on Hunter Henry.
He's never had 700 yards in a season. Like, how is that possible?
Right. I was just trying to provoke you to stay. You needed to get that out of your system. You now did. But 24.5 PPR points today for Hunter Henry. Man, the thing that sucks with Diggs, we got that season high 88% route participation last week. It fell to 54% in this game. We have no clue what they're going to do with Stephon Diggs in these games. So you can't we can't be ranking a player. Honestly, like it's if we knew that Stephon Diggs was going to run a route on 55% of the passing plays, we'd rank him as like a low end wide receiver 4. But because we never really know how they're going to use him, like he's a wide receiver 3 each week. But he truly is one of these guys that, depending on how they decide to, basically deploy him in that game, there's a really wide range of outcomes each week for Stephon Diggs. It could be good or it could be really bad.
Was he the highest in route rate? Because we did have Kayshon Boutte back in this one. Only had 15 yards. Did draw a couple of DPI penalties that gained some additional yards. So what was kind of the overall hierarchy?
Boutte led the way at 85%. Then you had Mac Hollins at 80%. Then you had Stephon Diggs at 54%. Kyle Williams essentially was banished 5%. Pop Douglas 26% routes.
So again, next week, Patriots versus Giants on Monday Night Football. The Giants are one of these defenses that we've been highlighting because they're bad in man coverage and they're also just bad overall. That's why, again, it wasn't rocket science with the Monrob. I remember in my article, I was even like, this could be like a ladder situation. We're into that kind of thing there. I would say a similar sentiment is true for Diggs in a bounce back spot. Saw him have similar success against the Jets here just a couple short weeks ago. Of course, Dwayne, the real story here was Travion Henderson welcoming back Ramondre Stevenson to the backfield. And while no, Henderson didn't have a huge game, 66 rushing yards and 15 receiving yards. Man, he got stopped short at the 1 yard line on 2 separate drives out there. Again, a mere 6 feet away from adding 2 more touchdowns to his growing total. Sure didn't seem like Mondre was back in his usual lead back role.
No, he wasn't. I mean, Henderson had 22 opportunities today, 18 rushing attempts, and 4 targets. Whenever you look at Mondre, he only had 6 attempts. I don't even think he had a target. Yeah, I think he had 0. I think he might have had 1.
Yep.
So Henderson, 64% of the snaps, 67% of the rushing attempts. You mentioned inside the 5, they did rotate the guys, 44% of the snaps inside the 5. So 4 of 9. They actually did have quite a few of those. And a 56% route participation, 12% target share. But the offensive line woes have been a problem already for Henderson. So just like you talked about with May, it's something for us to keep an eye on. But it is a great first data point back. Now, again, we don't know. They might be easing Mondre back in, but all we can do is go with what we have. And over we saw the 2 big games where they just loaded up Hendo. And then now in this first game back with Stevenson, they continued to do so with Henderson. So I would say borderline running back 1, Ian, is where we've probably got to keep him right now until we see Stevenson in a larger role. Knock on wood. Hopefully we don't. We just keep seeing Hendo.
And I'll tell you what, man, I think I had Henderson ranks as my RB12 going this one with Mondre obviously playing. If I could have gone to Ian at noon and said, hey, 18 rushes, 4 targets for Travion, I probably would have ranked him higher.
You would have had him in the top 6 against the Bengals. Yeah. It was a great match. Didn't come through in the box score and in the way we hoped, especially against this great matchup, but still the workload was there.
And again, more great matchups on the way. Just hopefully that O-line is healthy enough to take advantage of them. Over to the Bengals, just 3 of 13 on third down. Otherwise, maybe could have had a little more success putting up points. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be for Joe Flacco and company. Did throw 1 touchdown to Mitchell Tinsley. This dude continues to flash with his opportunities. Beat Christian Gonzalez down the sideline and then stared him down like a freaking alpha after scoring the touchdown. So fun stuff from Tinsley, someone who Dwayne, unfortunately, I will say, unfortunately for Tinsley, but unfortunately because we want T. Higgins to be healthy, we could see Tinsley in a bigger role for at least another week because as much as Jamar Chase is coming back from that suspension, Higgins did suffer a concussion at the end of this game. So the Bengals are in a situation where they are playing against the Ravens on Thursday night. I am not a doctor. I would be incredibly surprised if Higgins plays in that one. I think Devontae Adams one time might have cleared concussion protocol ahead of a Thursday game. I cannot remember another occurrence. So I would highly doubt that. How do you see this wide receiver rotation, Dwayne, breaking out with Jamar Chase, but without T. Higgins?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Chase will be the one. Yoshivas will continue to play from the slot. He had 7 targets today, 120 air yards. That was the big thing. They were pushing the ball down the field to him. We'll see if we get Joe Burrow back. It sounded like he was a game time decision nearly. It sounded like it could be. Then we got a little bit of an early word. I think it was Friday or Saturday that Joe Burrow would not play. It sounded like he was really close. But Tinsley, man, like you mentioned, really good in the preseason. And dude, he beat Christian Gonzalez on that touchdown.
Yeah.
Like Christian Gonzalez has given up 2 touchdowns all season, one of them now to Mitchell Tinsley. Kind of reminds me of like Victor Cruz. Remember Victor Cruz when he broke out in the preseason? Ian, you were like 12 years old, went completely nuts, didn't do anything really that season.
Salsa in my mom's living room.
Yeah. And then the next year we saw the Tinsley breakout. Now, obviously we've got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase under contract, but to your point, Tinsley looking really good. So I would say you would see Jamar Chase with Yoshivas in the slot and Mitchell Tinsley on the opposite side of him. 10.9 PPR points a day for him, an 18% target share, 15.5 average depth of target, 93 air yards. Like those are numbers that we can work with in an offense that we know wants to throw the ball a lot, whether it's Joe Flacco or whether it is Joe Burrow under center. Also, Mike Gesicki returned today, Ian, and led the tight end room with a 68% route participation, 18% target share. Was really off to like a nice start. He had like 3 or 4 targets right away in the game, kind of cooled off over the second half, but Gesicki stepping back into still a rotation, guys, but was the tight end 1 today.
Here's the thing, though, Dwayne. I'm worried about that sticking at all. Once we have Chase and Higgins back, it could actually work for Thursday again, but I'm looking at it now. Shout out PFF. 26 of Jasicki's 28 snaps came in the slot or out wide. I could just see it being more so of an annoying 40% route rate once all the wide receivers are healthy. We kind of saw this last year when Higgins missed some time.
Yeah, but Gesicki we only play him when we don't have one of the starting wide receivers. Like, that's our rule. So we probably won't have T. Higgins next week. So Gesicki could be the guy over Yoshivas. Like, they were close today. Yoshivas gave you 10.6 PPR points, 7.5 to Gesicki.
We need a list of random rules like that, just kind of like hanging out, on one of our walls. That could be fun in a hurry. So again, hopefully Burrow's back. I know the original timeline when they said he was actually going to have a chance to come back, it seemed like Thanksgiving against the Ravens was his target. I know Adam Schefter was saying maybe a week after made more sense. Maybe the fact that they keep losing games is going to play into this, but I don't know, man. There was another report. I forget who, there's a lot of them flying around with these quarterbacks, but I do think they were talking about the potential trouble with suiting up Burrow for this game and then having the quick turnaround on Thursday night. So I'm cautiously optimistic he'll be out there for Thursday. Certainly would make that game a lot more fun. Last point, just another dominant effort from Chase Brown. One that honestly they might need to continue at this point because Taj Brooks suffered a concussion and is probably going to be unlikely for Thursday night as well.
Yeah, I think the big thing here really is, do we get Samaje Perine back from that high ankle sprain? He did start practicing last week. It was in a limited fashion. But Chase Brown, 89% of the snaps today, 83% of the rushing attempts. He had 19 carries, Ian, 93% of the 2-minute offense. Gave you 15 PPR points against a really good run defense, from the Patriots, who were they were missing Milton Williams today. So that's another thing to keep an eye on with this Patriots run defense. You lose a key interior player like that might hurt them a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah, Sean Tucker popped off for him a little bit here recently. Even the New York Jets last week, man, I know they had Justin Fields helping out as well, but they had 140 yards, not exactly resembling the same early season brick wall, but still winning football games nevertheless. Moving on, we had the Bears take down the Steelers 31-28. This did push because the Bears were 3-point favorites. They overcashed at 46. So a 4-game winning streak for the Bears. Shout out to Caleb Williams and everyone that supports the home team in the Windy City. First place team in the Windy City, I should say. Caleb Williams, 239 yards, not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns, also chipped in 21 rushing yards. Did have a disastrous fumble in the end zone that led to a Steelers touchdown, but we're not all perfect, Dwayne. I don't know about you, but just again, a good performance from Caleb against the Steelers defense that has been playing better football recently. So there were some misses, and it just seems like a lot of times, man, it almost takes him like a quarter. Maybe has to get hit a couple times before he really eases in the games. But really, again, just confident in the long-term trajectory of this dude. And let's face it, the short-term has been pretty nice this year as well. That said, just trying to figure out who's going to be the big-time beneficiary in this passing game week to week can be problematic. It sure seemed like Luther Burden was really taking that step up, maybe the alpha status in the first half, and then you look up at the end of the game, Roma Dunze works his way up to 53 yards and a team-high 9 targets. And, oh, yeah, DJ Moore decided to catch 2 touchdowns for a change. Any rhyme or reason right now from this wide receiver room, Dwayne?
It's a pretty big rotation. Burden was the wide receiver 3 again. So we talked about last week that he overtook that role from Olamide Zaccheaus. So that did stick. So he's the 3rd wide receiver. He had a 62% route participation today, 17% target share. He also had a carry for 15 yards. So he gave you 9.1 PPR points. Not like he went crazy, but he's in the role we saw last week. But you saw Roma Dunze with an 84% route participation. He's not up in that 90, 95% like we saw early in the season. This has been going on for about 3 weeks now with Rome. Still led the team. 30% target share today for Rome. 9 targets, 117 air yards, 13 average depth of target. It was a heavy man coverage team. And what's Odunze's target share against man coverage this year? 30%. It's not like it was all man coverage today, but he had a 30% target share on the game. And then DJ Moore finally had a big game, 23.4 fantasy points, but 78% route participation. So just a lot of rotating going on here, and the tight ends the same way. Colson Loveland moved back into the lead position with a 70% route participation. He gave you 14.9 PPR points, and it was Cole Kmet operating as the tight end too. It's almost like the entire team is a hot hand approach. It's just like whoever's playing good, and it might be one way in the first half, another way in the second half. So they're just rotating all these guys. It makes it tougher, but the Bears are playing good enough. Like Roma Dunze, guys I know early in the season, we thought, man, we might have a top 12 wide receiver. We were ranking him that way. We can't anymore. Now he's more of a borderline wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, but you're still going to be starting him. DJ Moore, I don't trust. Like, I'm sorry. We've seen the whole season. This is really the first time he's done anything. Burden needs to be on rosters, but we need to see more playing time.
And look, Moore's been amazing over the years and everything, but this year just hasn't really been passing the eye test in the same way. Did have a nice little route on the pivot for his first touchdown. The second one was more so just open down to the seam. Good throw from Caleb there. But with the Rome thing, man, I'm with you because, again, this matchup checked everything. We actually had a fine weather game in Chicago in November, which is pretty rare. We had a Steelers defense that was giving up, I believe, going in the most fantasy points per game, 2 wide receivers, and their on-demand coverage, which, again, was going all in the direction of Rome. So it's just a situation, Dwayne, where, again, I don't think Rome's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it has been such a great stretch here for the Bears schedule-wise, okay? Since week 3, they have played the Cowboys, Raiders, Commanders, Saints, Ravens, Bengals, Giants, Vikings, and Steelers. A lot of those defenses are straight up really bad. Moving forward, Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, and they get the 49ers in week 17, which is nice. Tough. I mean, that's not good, man. That's not good.
Yeah, very tough. Like he's still the wide receiver 1 for the Bears. So, I mean, we're going to be ranking him in the wide receiver 3 range, most likely in those matchups. Yeah. So you're probably starting him. If you're, again, up listening to this show at this time of the night, you're in a league where you need to start Rome Odunze. It's, look, it's a step forward from his rookie season is the big, takeaway, but it's not as good as what we hoped it was going to be to start the year when things were just looking so good for him.
Yeah, and then my only point was just that if we're having kind of some inconsistencies with that previous schedule, I'm going to have a hard time fully trusting them, as we get into the playoff stretch. Last point here would be at a potentially evolving backfield. DeAndre Swift, not his best day at the office. In fact, it was quite bad. 29 scoreless yards on 9 touches. He also lost a fumble. I will say, this was kind of weird, man. I sure thought his forward progress would stop. There was nothing definitive on that replay, man. I don't know when that ball got ripped out for my money's worth. It sure seemed like it might have gotten ripped out when he was on the ground. Regardless, who the hell cares what I think? It certainly did seem like Ben Johnson perhaps thought a little bit more about it being bad than I did, Dwayne. Did we see a big-time shift in usage to Kyle Monangai post-fumble, or was it a situation kind of like you mentioned before where maybe just the drives where Monangai was in there happened to take place a little bit longer?
Yeah, if you just look at it straight up, it's like Monangai, 56% of the snaps versus 43% for Swift, and we had seen Monangai grow his role over these last several weeks. But really, if we look before Swift fumbled, which was on the 4th possession of the game, Ian, in the second quarter, ahead of that, 39% of the snaps to Monangai, 61% to DeAndre Swift, 33% of the attempts to Monangai, 67% to DeAndre Swift. Route participation, they were dead even at 44% before that fumble. But after the fumble, Monangai, man, 63% of the snaps, 69% of the rushing attempts, 50% of the route, 50% route participation. And he played 38% of the 2-minute offense. So really after the fumble, Swift just became the 2-minute offense guy. He had 63% of that. He had a 39% route participation, but only 15% of the rushing attempts. What will the coaching staff do with this moving forward? We have no clue. We really don't know. Like, will this extend into next week and they let Kyle Monangai run? All I know is we'll just have to, honestly, when I project them, I'm going to project them even closer together next week. Like that's the only thing I really know to do with it. We'll obviously be watching the news, guys, seeing if we can get anything from the news conferences. Maybe they tip their hand. Typically coaches don't really. Maybe we get something from Coach Speak Index. It's a situation to monitor. But I think, right now I'm going to grade it as a 1A, 1B. Not even sure who I'm going to put in the 1A right now. I'll probably still give it to Swift, but again, I'm going to have them really close.
Was a real nice stretch there for Swift. Just going to be a little bit of a tumble down the ranks. Again, it's not like we were going insane the membrane with him. He was our consensus RB14 going into this week. I think a step down next, probably behind guys like Travis Etienne, behind Breece Hall, more so with the Aaron Joneses, the Kenneth Walkers, the Woody Marks of the world. That sounds a little more right to me.
Yeah, and the schedule you mentioned was our big concern with Swift. As we, the last few weeks on the utilization report, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about him as a sell high. Yeah. Not because we thought Monangai was necessarily taking over, but was at least pressuring him, and we knew the schedule was coming, and that was a concern. And obviously, the other thing with Swift, man, he just battles injuries every week. Like I know on my sleeper app, as soon as the games are over, it's like DeAndre Swift changes from healthy to questionable like right away. And then it'll be healthy again on Wednesday. And then it's back to questionable by Thursday. I'm like, what the hell is happening with DeAndre Swift, man? So, tough schedule coming up. And man, if this is a situation where this turns into more like a Seattle thing where it's a true split, or God forbid, like he falls behind Monangai, Swift's going to be falling down our rankings pretty quick.
Bears at the Eagles on Friday afternoon. Black Friday football. Gotta love America. Over with the Steelers, it was the Mason Rudolph show. 171 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick through the air. Only 7 rushing yards. Did chip in a pretty good 22-yard scramble. Got called back on an illegal formation penalty, but I just didn't know Rudolph actually had that speed in him. So good job there. All that said, Mike Tomlin did say after the game that Aaron Rodgers is expected to start for their Week 13 matchup against the Buffalo Bills. So probably just a 1-week audition, probably for the better. This passing game really didn't seem like they had much of any interest of pushing the ball downfield. We did see Calvin Austin get 36 yards. DK Metcalf had 22 and a rushing touchdown. That said, it was just kind of the screen that ended up. Yeah. And it was the unfortunate, Dwayne. I know you had a Bijan prop bet. It was the same thing as that, just kind of like the throw behind the line. Everyone thought it was a pass, but because of freaking physics and gravity or whatever, it happened to be called a run. So in the passing game, again, be a lot cooler if Metcalf had some bigger booms. Maybe he gets it going with Rodgers back under center. Main thing there is just keep an eye on that ankle injury that he was playing throughout the game. The big story here, Dwayne, was the Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell split. 1 week after Warren was forced to leave early with an ankle injury, did we see Gainwell eating more into his work than usual?
Yeah, it was almost an even split. 49% of the snaps to Warren, 52% to Gainwell. Warren was really more the guy on the early downs, had 51% of the rushing attempts versus 29% for Gainwell. But then when we look at the passing attack, a 65% route participation for Gainwell versus 32% for Warren. So we don't know if this has to do with Warren still coming back from the injury or Gainwell just honestly looking really good every time they let him play football, Ian. So, we had that 4-week stretch before these last 2 games where Jalen Warren had really taken over the backfield, had 80%, of the team's rushing attempts. Snaps were great. Routes, he was still sharing a little bit with Gainwell, but was in a really nice role. He gave you 12.8 PPR points today, Jalen Warren, but 18.2 to Kenneth Gainwell, and he played 100% of the 2-minute offense. So I think the way I'm going to project this next week is just what I said. Warren getting the slight lead on the ground, but more of the passing game going through Gainwell, but most of the work just through these 2 guys. We did not see Caleb Johnson really doing anything today.
This would be a situation, though, Dwayne, unlike with the Bears, I could see us actually getting Warren and Gainwell, maybe both in the top 24. Now, one's not going to be ranked probably inside the top 20 in that situation, but 18 touches for Warren, 16 for Gainwell. I don't think there's enough wide receivers in Pittsburgh for this to be, as big of an issue as it maybe is in other offenses.
No, I think that's fair. And both guys, even though we had a 0% target share for Warren and he's not getting as many routes, we know that he's a good receiver out of the backfield. And at any moment, we could get a 10, 15% target share. A lot of that's been going to the tight ends over the last month or so. So that's been a little bit of an issue for Jalen Warren. A lot of times we see that there's a trade-off with targets to tight end, especially of the low average depth of target type guys. They're operating a lot of times in the same in the same area of the field against the linebackers underneath and things like that. But yes, I do see a scenario because they are committed enough to the ground and they are committed enough to designing stuff, for both of these guys. And Gainwell's really the one. Like a lot of players, they're only going to get 29% of the rushing attempts. We're not going to feel great about, but man, just because his targets per route run are so high, he ranks 3rd on the season. I don't know what it is after today, but it was 3rd behind CMC and I can't think of CMC and Bijan. I think we're ahead of him. And he was in the same tier as Jahmyr Gibbs, who obviously had another big receiving day today. But my guess is he's in the top 4 in targets per route run still after today.
And again, he had a great day, man. It could have been absolutely massive, though. He got tackled at the 1-yard line on a 55-yard fake tush push rush, which was pretty cool to see from the Steelers. Their teams have had a lot of success, kind of deviating from the status quo there. Then also had a short 4-yard touchdown run nullified on a hold that, maybe, caused a touchdown to happen in the first place. But you guys get what I'm getting at here. So anyway, going to be Bills, Ravens, and Dolphins before the Steelers get the Lions and the Browns to round out the fantasy season. At least for his next 3 weeks, should be feeling good about not 1, but 2 running backs there in Pittsburgh. Moving on, speaking of those Browns, they took down the Raiders 24-10 as we get into the late afternoon action. The Raiders did cover. I'm sorry, they did not cover. The Browns obviously won outright as 3.5-point dogs. The under did cash at 36. So Shador Sanders, Dwayne, 1-0, 209 yards. Get the gold jacket ready. Touchdown on just a sick bomb to Dylan Sampson that was thrown behind the line. But whatever. I don't even want to hate on the guy. It was awesome. He got a win. It was good seeing Dion happy. His quote after the game, a lot of people want to see me fail. It ain't going to happen. I do not want to see Shedeur Sanders fail. I would love for him to be great. I love the NFL when we have a lot of good quarterbacks in it. That said, outside of that 52-yard bomb to Isaiah Bond, which was sweet, that was a legit, really good throw. I didn't know he had that arm strength in him. And a nice little scramble play of Jerry Jeudy. I'm skeptical of any amount of success translating to fantasy success, Dwayne, which kind of is our goal here on the Fantasy Life Show.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the one positive is he was pushing the ball down the field, period. So we had a 22.3 average depth of target to Judy, a 21.3 average depth of target to Tillman, a 25 average depth of target to Isaiah Bond. So that's something we haven't seen, from the Cleveland attack. And I will say, Judkins we'll talk about in a second, obviously got a little bit dinged up in this game. But if you're thinking about the way their offense operates, they try to lean into the run game. They want to hit the big plays down the field. At least he can push the ball vertically. And to your point, like, while he doesn't have the greatest arm strength, he's a pretty good anticipatory thrower, right? And he is getting the ball out in front of the guys. To your point, is it enough where we're just like, oh my God, this is going to be a big turnaround for the Browns fantasy offense? No. But if we get another game like this, I mean, it's the kind of stuff that can put a player like Jerry Jeudy on the map, at least, right? Where we know maybe we get, he can remain in the boom bust wide receiver 4 conversation. Obviously, the rest of these guys are not really probably using Ian. None of them are even at an 80% route participation. The only other one is Harold Fannin. He's the one guy that wasn't getting targets down the field. He had a 0.7 average depth of target, but he led the tight end room with an 81% route participation, led the team with a 33% target share, but that was only 6 targets, Ian. They did not try to throw the ball that much. Obviously, they're winning the game. They were leaning into the ground game.
I will say, I look at the schedule. They obviously play the Raiders today. Niners, Titans, Bears, Bills, and Steelers to round things out. And that's pretty hot, Dwayne.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, it's good. So if Sanders can keep this up, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not going to be super excited about any of these guys, but Judy could become a boom bust wide receiver 4. Maybe he's a wide receiver 3 if Sanders puts up another, good game and we get that schedule. Then I would say Fannin, if he can be the lead tight end. The problem is every week this route participation stuff bounces around on us, with Fannin. We get a 65% game, then we get an 80% game. We all know that Harold Fannin Jr. is a really good tight end, guys. Like, I think he'll eventually be a superstar if they get the quarterback situation figured out and once David Njoku moves on, but it's still tough the rest of the way.
Dwayne, I know the Cowboys were on. I'm sure they had the full attention of the McFarland family during, late Sunday afternoon. But Harold Fannin had 5 touches today. How many tackles avoided do you think he was credited with? No cheating.
8.
11. Do you people know how insane that is? The only players to force double-digit tackles in the game this year are Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, Ashton Genty, and now Harold Fannin. The only other tight end to break more than 5 in a game this year, also Harold Fannin. Nobody else is over 4.
Dude, he's an awesome player. We just need a functional offense. And maybe they can do that down the stretch with the schedule you talked about. But Harold Fannin's a baller.
Maybe, man. Again, Njoku's a baller too. I hate that they're trying to make us, take sides here. I feel like
they are.
Kid going through a divorce or something. I want to love Fannin and David Njoku. God, don't make me pick, but man. So again, very just encouraging for Shedeur Sanders. Only 20 pass attempts. We're not going to get much of a rushing floor and stuff, but hey, cool. Throw the bond. This dude's been so much. It was good to see him have his moment in the sun, regardless of what else happens this season. So otherwise, did you have something to say about Quinshon Judkins? He did find the end zone twice. Dylan Sampson also found the end zone as I was making that joke about the screen, but Dylan Sampson getting his own right as well.
Yeah, man. Judkins, he missed a little bit of time in the game. He kind of banged his head, falling down backwards, after breaking a tackle, had a defender land on him. But he didn't leave the game. He just was kind of in and out from there. Gave you 16.2 PPR points, did most of his damage early in the game. And it's the same role we've seen. 62% of the rushing attempts. So he had 16 carries today, just a little bit less than normal, I think, due to the injury. And then Dylan Sampson's a guy we've talked about multiple times. He also scored over 16 fantasy points today. He had 35% of the snaps. and 27% of the time. So 7 carries. I think that's a season high for Dylan Sampson. And then he had a 17% target share. So a 43% targets per route run. This guy doesn't have enough routes to qualify to like compare to CMC and these other guys. But of the small sample guys, like below Gainwell and all of them, like Dylan Sampson definitely gets a lot of targets. So we'll just have to keep an eye on the injury report this week from Judkins would be the main thing that I would say. And Sampson, they flip-flop this thing around so much, Ian. It's like, oh, Sampson's the running back 2. Jerome Ford's the running back 2. Dylan Sampson's the running back 2. But I'll just say this. Samson, like if something, we don't want this to happen, but if Judkins had to miss the next game, like I wouldn't be excited about starting Jerome Ford. But if I thought Sampson might have the full workload, I'd be pretty excited.
And I'm more confident in Sampson actually being like allowed to be the lead running back. It's not like Rashard Smith. We've seen Sampson, I'm looking at it right now, 15 pass blocking snaps this year. It was a very small window, Dwayne, one in kind of like a half games as they ease in Judkins. But like Sampson was the lead back for that stretch.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Sampson, if you guys are playing in a deeper league, he's a potential stash this week until we know what's going on with Quinshawn.
Otherwise, the Myles Garrett chase for 23 to break TJ Watt and Michael Strahan's record took another step in the right direction. 3 sacks in this one. He's up to 18 with 6 games left. Needs 5 more to again break that record. So it would be pretty cool if he does manage to pull that one off. But yeah, man, Quinshawn Judkins, I don't think it's his fault. Like the dude runs hard as hell out there. I wonder if he's almost like I see it with Genty too, man. There's just so many times as a human being and especially a running back, you get hit behind a line of scrimmage. I'm sure you almost just start bracing for it. So, but at this point, man, since they've come back from that London game against the Vikings, man, he has not averaged more than 3.5 yards per carry in a single game. So again, Judkins, still very good talent, but just has not been able to get anything going here recently. Over with the Raiders, they fired their offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, after this game. So that I think kind of tells you how this one went. Just 268 total yards. And they were also undisciplined with 13 penalties for 109 yards. And oh yeah, they were also 4 for 17 on third down. Geno Smith took not 1, not 2. He took 10 sacks. Okay. I'm not going to waste time going all the way up there. It was not pretty. Really, man, except for throwing to Tyler Lockett, he actually has some good throws then. Just pretty much a disaster in his offense. Deontay Thornton made a nice catch over the middle, which shocked me because I just kind of expect him to drop everything thrown his way. Otherwise, man, could have been a huge game for Trey Tucker. First play of the game got missed for what could have been a 30 or 40-yard catch. Had a 65-yard touchdown miss later. And then on the same drive, I want to say on third down, Geno again overthrew him, a little bit tighter window, but again, could have, should have, would have been a 25-yard touchdown. You add it all together, and he had a week high 171 unrealized air yards. Oh yeah, Brock Bowers, only 55 yards, did have 9 targets though. Just any hope in this passing game, Dwayne? Because I have none.
Yeah, Pete Carroll has Brock Bowers on his fantasy team, and that's how Chip Kelly got fired today. He had a 96% route participation, so he's out there. He had 9 targets, 21%. So, like, look, it's Brock Bowers and it's Ashton Genty. Like, that's the Trey Tucker too. Like, he had 188 air yards today, but it's Tucker obviously got the hot start to the season. He's a boom bust wide receiver 4 at this point, but Bowers and Genty are the main 2 guys. If you've got them, you're playing them every week. Genty gave you 24.8 PPR points today. 90% of the rushing attempts. I mean, the dude, like, I get it. He has not looked great. The offensive line looks terrible, but they just continue to load him up. He also had 8 targets. So here's the thing: 75% plus percentage of 75% plus of the snaps in 5 of the last 6 games. He's given you 16.6, 19.9, 15.3, 9.4, and 24.8 fantasy points. Those are all just super usable, man. I mean, when you get as much volume he's getting in the targets, dude, 17%, 13%, 20%, 21%, 19%. Genty, like, is just working his way up there as far as target share. By the end of the year, if they keep using this way, he's going to be one of the most targeted backs in the NFL.
And that's what, honestly, I felt the best about in this one was he caught all 8 of his targets. I don't know if it was the yips or what was going on, but we know this dude's a good receiver, man, but he was dropping a lot of passes here recently. I had 2 or 3 in that Cowboys game alone. Unfortunately, he did suffer an ankle injury at the end of the game, and I've seen a couple of those Twitter docs have concern that it could be of the high ankle variety. He was walking off the field fine. I don't know if that means absolutely anything out here, but again, definitely something to keep an eye on there. I think, Dwayne, it would be Raheem Mostert up next if Genty's out of the picture.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert's been operating as the running back 2 for really the whole season. So now we never know with these things. Like Zamir White is inactive pretty much every week. Dylan Lobby, they gave a little bit of the 2-minute offense early in the year, and then they took that back away. They could make it more of a rotation, but I would expect Raheem Mostert to be at a minimum a lead of the committee, if not like a guy getting 65-70% of the snaps.
I'll say this though, guys, at least for the first week going in, next week they're, in Los Angeles to face the Chargers. That's going to be more of like a RB 28, 29 placement for most. So this is not someone to get carried away with immediately. We'll see what happens, but would not get carried away.
Agree.
With that in mind, let's move on. We had the Falcons take down the Saints 24-10. Falcons winning outright as 1.5-point dogs. The under cash here at 40.5. So just 3 for 12 on third down for Atlanta. Wasn't the smoothest game, but Kirk Cousins proved that he is still capable of throwing a touchdown pass in the year of 2025. In fact, he threw 2, one to David Sills and another beautiful moonball variety to Darnell Mooney. Did not know Cousins still had that arm strength in him. So that was good, man. And honestly, put some good balls on the Kyle Pitts as well. Pause. Oh, God, it's getting late. But yeah, man, it was encouraging enough, Dwayne. Again, you're facing the Saints and everything, but I just, based on that Dolphins game, I was prepared for the Falcons to go out there and score 3 points. So from that perspective, when it goes to a condensed passing game, we are expecting Drake London to be back. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, hopefully better games, and then Bijan Robinson. I'm confident enough that they can keep on keeping on because they're great. I think Cousins can be a below average quarterback, not a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, it was a step in the right direction. I mean, it was only 199 yards today, but 8.7 yards per attempt. To your point, even though his arm strength isn't great, he was still able to push the ball down the field. Cousins is another one of these guys. He's a great anticipatory thrower. He can't really afford to be late on a throw because, his arm strength isn't quite what it used to be. He knows how to operate an NFL offense. He's not somebody you're going to be starting in fantasy. Maybe when you get to bye weeks in a super flex, he had 14.5 fantasy points, but it's not like Michael Penix Jr. Ian was out here lighting this thing up for 300 passing yards per game, right? If Cousins can be in that 200 to 225 yards per game range, it's going to give this offense a chance to be similar to what we've seen, previously. So yeah, I'm with you. And we'll see where it goes from here. Obviously we would prefer it be Penix. Mainly because we know Penix will just laser lock on Drake London. We don't know if that's going to happen with Cousins or not.
Again, expecting London back. Moon only had 3 targets in this one, so once London's back, it's going to take us a bit to have any level of faith with Darnell Mooney there, and otherwise Bijan Robinson doing his thing. So wasn't a complete, crystal clean performance from Cousins. 3 sacks, but again, better at least than that very low bar we saw against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, with the Tyler Shuck-led Saints, 243 passing yards, which again tends to be a good sign to him. We want to see these unproven quarterbacks at least prove capable of throwing for north of 230, 240 yards, even in a performance where your offense couldn't find the end zone. Is still a rookie making his third career start. Took 5 sacks, lost a fumble, but was very close to scoring a couple of times. Actually got stopped at the 1-yard line, not once, not twice, but 3 times on rushes. 2 separate drives. So wasn't going to score 3 touchdowns, but in a different simulation, maybe he did score 2. So did run 7 times for 22 yards overall, Dwayne. Again, I don't know if this offense has enough around him other than Chris Olave and Jawan Johnson, who each had solid days in their own right to prop him up. But Tyler Shuck and even I know he's benched, but Spencer Rattler, man, I don't know if the Saints have something in either guy, in terms of that something actually being a quarterback that can lead them in contention. But I'm impressed enough with what I've seen from Shuck throwing the football that I think Olave and Jawan can keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I agree. Shuck, obviously in fantasy, you guys probably didn't start him, and hopefully, 7.9 PPR points, but to Ian's point, 243 passing yards, only 5.7 per attempt today, but some of that was due to the incompletions more so than what you talked about, pushing the ball down the field, especially with Olave. Olave had 151 air yards today, caught 9 balls for 70 yards. He had a 30% target share, 13 targets for Olave. So with Shaheed gone, we do have the condensed offense. Jawan Johnson was the number 2 target in the pass game, to your point there, Ian. 81% route participation for him with a 16% target share, 7 targets on the game. So I think Jawan's sitting right there, man, at that borderline tight end 1, low end tight end 1, somewhere in that range. And it's really condensed around those two guys. So yeah, I agree with you. Devon Villay is the guy running as the wide receiver 3, 90% route participation. He had 16% targets too. So he was tied with Juwan Johnson. Wasn't able to do as much with his only 6.7 PPR points today. They also released Brandon Cook. So it was Tipton taking over the wide receiver 4 role, at least for now.
Saints at the Dolphins next week, so that could be a matchup where we actually are going with Olave and the artist known as Juwan Jesus and closer start-sit decisions. That said, Dwayne, the real big ramification here was Alvin Kamara unfortunately suffering an early knee injury. It is officially a sprained MCL, so it's one of these where they're saying, like, good news, it's not a torn ACL, it's not this long-term issue, but just for a team like the Saints that, let's face it, isn't exactly going anywhere, I do wonder how much they're really going to be pushing Kamara to get back into action. So it did seem like Devin Neal was taken over. That said, Audric Estime was a healthy scratch, and we also did see a lot of that effort Taysom Hill join.
That effort Taysom Hill led the team, man, with 39% of their rushing attempts. Dude had 10 carries. I mean, what are we doing? Devin Neal, like if you just were to look at snaps and that's all you looked at, you'd be like, oh, 74%. But he did fall behind Taysom Hill in the rushing attempts. 71% route participation, though, for Neal. And this was a guy that, Thor Nystrom had talked about being a good receiver out of the backfield in college. He had a 16% target share. So he had 7 targets on the day, which tied Juwan Johnson and Devon Villay. So, we'll see what happens here. To your point, they'll have another back. They'll probably mix in. Taysom Hill just really screws this up for everyone, man. Like if we had Devin Neal getting that kind of route participation and getting like 55% of the rushing attempts, I get it, guys. It's the Saints. Like we're not all of a sudden gonna be like, oh my God, you got to have Devin Neal on your team, but he would be a usable asset like in deeper leagues. And so I'll be interested to see what they do with this. It's not like Taysom Hill's been good with this stuff, Ian.
I know.
I mean, he scored 1.7 fantasy points today. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm brutal.
Yeah. Ian's just like, no comment, moving on.
No, but you're right, man. Because in past years, it was one of those things where like it would annoy us because we wanted the ball to go to the other players who were starting. But he was doing something with it, so you couldn't exactly blame him. Now I'm actively like, why are you giving this guy the football, Kellen Moore?
Yeah. Yep, I'm with you. So we'll just have to see how this goes. I would anticipate Devin Neal being, our running back 1 for the team and the way that we rank it. We're going to struggle to have him as anything higher than probably a mid-range running back 3, Ian, is what I would say. If they did decide to hand over the attempts to him, though, like this is a guy that could move up the ranks.
Dwayne, this season, how many yards per carry do you think Taysom Hill is averaging?
0.7.
I scoffed at it when I looked up. 2.2, Dwayne. Okay, 2.2.
That's better than I thought.
Even with the context of a lot of his yards coming in short yard situations, that is objectively bad. I will try to find something this week that helps quantify how bad that is. So, not great. So, hopefully, Devin Neal, again, can get that feature role. But, again, 74% snaps. You only get 7 carries out of that, man. It really is wild. And I would expect Estimate to probably eat into that. So, take it easy. Devin Neal is going to be on waiver wire columns, and for good reason. You should try to scoop him up if possible. I will say, Dwayne, this is a good schedule. I mentioned the Dolphins game. Buccaneers isn't great after that. Panthers, Jets, and Titans in the fantasy playoffs if we can get this figured out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's an offense that, we always ask the question, are they good enough to take advantage of it? I think Olave is. So I mean, I think Olave is the one guy we really trust. Juwan, borderline tight end 1, and we'll have to see how the backfield shakes out with this Kamara stuff.
And with that in mind, guys, let's get to our Xfinity Game of the Week. If you call yourself a sports fan, guys, you got to have Xfinity. All the games all in one place. And man, these features are awesome. We got the Sports Zone, which features every pro football game and over 1,000 college games, highlights and alerts all in one place. The Multi-View, which features you having the ability to be up in the 4 stadiums at once. We got the Xfinity Fan View, which features live scores, odds, and stats all in one place, personalized to you. And I mentioned it's all in enhanced 4K, simply stunning viewing experience. And all you have to do to access this is use your voice remote and just say football. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Xfinity. Imagine that. Learn more at Xfinity.com. No restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees are extra and subject to change. That game of the week, Dwain's been rocking the hat all show accordingly. That Dallas Cowboys took down the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21. Cowboys winning outright as 3-point home dogs. Under, surprisingly, did cash in the Cowboys game. You do not see that every day. But what a comeback at Jerry World, Dwain. Cowboys had a 21-point deficit to overcome there early in the second quarter after the Eagles scored touchdowns on their first 3 drives. Was not too much for Dak Prescott and company to overcome. One of the more fun games for Cowboys fans, man. I mean, look, sadly, I would have said the best performance this year that I felt as a biased Cowboys fan was tying the Packers, which is pretty pathetic to say out loud to, some people. But that's seriously how I felt, man. Just for a team that we knew could score and stuff. But God, you lose to the Cardinals and the Panthers. Like, this was maybe the first time since that Packers game that I was like, oh, the Cowboys can actually compete with good teams in the year 2025.
And really just a huge win like what we talked about with the Chiefs, which now we get these two teams facing off against each other on Thursday, both fighting for playoff contention. But yeah, I mean, and dude, Dak's playing amazing, man. 27.1 PPR fantasy points, but just beyond the fantasy stuff, like 354 yards against this Eagles defense that we saw just completely rattle Jared Goff and a really good offense last week. And so, 2 passing touchdowns. He also ran one in, and he dove and then, basically, tumbled in, did a flip into the end zone, tried to get in later on another one, got met at the pylon there, trying to get to the right edge of the end zone. But yeah, Dak Prescott, man, like that. Obviously, we'll talk about the receivers here in a second, but Dak is just, it's like 2 years ago what we were getting with Dak. So obviously fully healthy and just balling out, man.
I mean, Reed Blankenship and Dory Jackson did get injured in the game. But I don't know, man. If it was Quinyon Mitchell and, Cooper DeJean, that'd be a little bit different. I'd be like, oh, yeah, look who they're targeting now. But just a situation where, again, it was just honestly Dak, Pickens, and, mostly those two making plays. CD did have a great catch down the sideline, but I don't know what it is against him and the Eagles this year, man. 6 official drops against the Eagles this season. Honestly, probably should have been 7 out there. They did not officially rule that drop touchdown a drop. That's why you got to remember with these stats, always still a little bit subjective.
That's a drop.
I know. I agree. Just officially by the powers that be, Dwain, it's not, which I don't know why. Maybe they'll fix it in the morning. It is, Sunday evening after all.
Yeah, but sometimes when they're contested, when the defender's close, like raking, they won't count it on the receiver. But man, it's right in the breadbasket.
I know, it was right there. So again, that was the only thing, like with Dak, like, yeah, he had one bad end zone interception, but otherwise, like even that one, they had a false start where they could have just scored a touchdown the play before anyway. So CD is now tied with Jerry Jeudy for an NFL high 8 drops. That said, we still see him getting open. Puka Nacua led the NFL in drops his rookie year. Okay. So anytime you look at a drop leaderboard, you're going to see, guess what? A lot of really good NFL wide receivers and maybe Jerry Jeudy as well. But let's face it, Jerry Jeudy was good last year. So CD, again, disappointing performance, only having 75 scoreless yards on 11 targets, but he's still CD Lamb. The question, though, Dwain, is just like, how high are we ranking George Pickens these days? Because I know we were starting him regardless, but at this point in the season now, he joins Jackson Smith and Jigba, Puka Nacua, and Rashee Rice as the only wide receivers averaging north of 20 PPR points per game. This is unreal.
Yeah, man, 29.6 PPR points today. That catch that he hauled in, that was basically just it's just a 50-50 jump pass that Dak threw to him with 2 defenders on him, pulling it down when the Cowboys had to have it. And just what he's doing after the catch this year, it's just, I'll just say this, like, Arthur Smith, look at what you had, and you didn't want to use this guy in a full capacity. And now the Cowboys are actually letting him run the full route tree, and obviously getting to play with Dak, like, is a big part of this. And Prescott has just got a great feel for this man at this point. Look, man, we had both of these guys in our top 12 wide receivers this week against the Eagles. That tells you how much we love the Cowboys offense and how much we love both players. And I'm not going to budge on Lamb. Like, Lamb and Pickens are both going to be in our top 12. I know it sounds weird, but like, how can we not have them there? Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess the question is, like, if you're going to rank Pickens over Lamb, I guess I can't really argue with that, but I mean, the bottom line is you have 2 top 12 wide receivers. Pretty exciting times.
100%, man. The whole thing with Pickens, I've complained about this over the years, but I hate how like off the field problems are lumped into one category. You have true pieces of crap, people who are getting in trouble with the law, people who are taking drugs, people who are doing all these horrible things. And then people like George Pickens who, taunts a
Like, what's
quarterback
football?
when he shouldn't, does an AB celebration touchdown when he shouldn't. And those aren't good things. And the coaches should figure that out as well. But again, it would be nice to have a couple different categories when we are dealing with that sort of stuff. Because George Pickens, let's face it, yeah, he does some knucklehead things on the
It's
football field.
immaturity category, but he's a young
Yeah.
dude. Like, I mean, he's still a young guy. So,
And I bet the Steelers, could use someone that's putting up 146 yards and a touchdown against a freaking defense like this, and maybe deal with the occasional 15-yard penalty. But again, been even few and far between in Dallas this year. So amazing stuff from the passing game. Still good things from Javonte Williams and company. They just got to the 1-yard line and weren't really able to get him the ball and get that, elusive touchdown. But still 4-6 missed tackles on the day, looking good, and managed to clear 100 total yards. I feel like we're due for a multi-touchdown game here for Javonte, Dwain.
yep.
Really just haven't seen anyone come close to taking the mantle. I will say deep leagues, we've now seen this for a few weeks. Malik Davis got a little handcuff potential now.
Are you reading my show sheet that I wrote for myself? That was the big note. I had Malik Davis, ... deep league running back handcuff. Yeah. Look, man, Jaden Blue's buried. They don't even want him on the field right now. So Malik Davis is the handcuff to Javonte Williams. Do we know for sure what would happen if Javonte, knock on wood, never won it, if he were to go down? No, we don't. But I mean, I would project it as Malik Davis as the lead ball carrier for that weekend. I'd probably give him like 60% of the rushing attempts, Ian. So yes, Malik Davis, you guys are playing these sicko leagues, essentially available everywhere. To your point, we've seen this for multiple weeks now.
He's been with the team. I mean, I'm looking at, I know he wasn't like actually doing anything last year on the active roster. He was on the practice squad, but I think they trust him in the offense, man. Maybe you get a little like Hunter Lubke in the same way Shanahan uses, Kyle Juszczyk certain situations when he doesn't fully trust a running back. But yeah, Jaden Blue, man, ever since he fumbled against Denver has been a complete non-factor. So good stuff on Malik. Otherwise, Jake Ferguson could have, should have, would have been a great game. I mean, it was fine. Don't get me wrong. 5 catches for 60 yards, but he got stopped short and didn't score a touchdown in 2 separate drives. He's been running pretty hot previously, though, to be fair.
Yeah, and a great catch down the seam where finally he didn't almost die catching the ball down the seam. And that one did end right at the 1-yard line, got stopped just short. So yeah, Ferguson, look, when you got Pickens and Lamb to deal with, like, it's going to be tough for you to be like a 20% target share guy, but still in a high passing volume offense that's high quality. Defense is getting better. Yep. Cowboys had a lot of self-inflicted wounds today that led to a trailing script where they had to throw the ball probably even more than they wanted to, Ian. But yes, Jake Ferguson, not the high-end tight end one that we had early in the season, but a mid-range tight end one. If you want to call him a mid-low range tight end one, somewhere in there, like tight end 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. That's probably where he belongs rest of the season.
Cowboys Chiefs on Thanksgiving. I imagine that will have a game total north of 50. If you have a Cowboy on your fantasy squad, be happy and start them. Over with the Eagles, mentioned it, 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives. 2 were on short runs from Jalen Hurts. The other one was on an opening drive touchdown pass to A.J. Brown, who caught 8 of his 10 targets for 110 yards and a score. Almost had a second touchdown, caught it, actually got 1 foot down, touched the pylon with the ball, and then his second foot came down out of bounds. Unfortunately, that is not a catch. I do maintain that Dez did catch it, though. So good game from AJB, reminding everyone that he is quite good at football. So is Devontae Smith. Ridiculous diving 41-yard catch. I think the NFL Twitter account actually made it their header. It was that cool. Caught 6 of 11 targets for 89 yards. 98 unrealized air yards, though, could have been even bigger. And yes, he did get stopped down at the 1-yard line as well on one of his catches. So the usual there. I wish Saquon Barkley can get more going on the ground. They have kind of thrown him the ball a little bit more often, I felt like in recent weeks, to try to get him going. But yeah, otherwise, Dwayne, just kind of business as usual in Philly, just wasn't enough to win this game.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts gave you 30.9 PPR points. So when we get these games where they decide that they want to throw the ball more, whether it's due to the script or the matchup or whatever, like Jalen's still capable of giving you these big games because he also had 2 rushing touchdowns in this one. But yeah, nothing to add here. The main thing with Barkley, only 10 carries today, but he did have the 8 targets. So I mean, he's hanging around in that 18 to 22 opportunity bucket. So they could still get things going. Eagles offensive line a bit banged up right now, but nothing else to add here.
And look, I mean, before that final end of game possession, the Eagles only really had 4 possessions in the second half. They had a Saquon fumble. They had a Goddard, 20-yard catch nullified in an illegal formation. Bad penalty, fumble here and there, just kind of killing the drive. So I wouldn't freak out too much about the implosion, at least in fantasy land. Still expecting these guys to do more good things than not ahead of next week's matchup against the Bears again on Black Friday. So again, guys, this was our Xfinity Game of the Week brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Xfinity, imagine that. Two more games here on the Fantasy Live Show. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We had the Jaguars take down the Cardinals 27-24 in overtime. Jacksonville covered and won as 2.5-point faves. The over did cash at 47.5. So Jaguars wasn't a very clean performance. Trevor Lawrence threw not one, not two, but three interceptions. I think one into the end zone was tipped. The other two were just not very good, Dwayne. But right when I cursed the guy on Twitter, he decided to turn it around and just make some of the throws that make the Trevor Lawrence, just experience so frustrating, man. A nice back shoulder throw to Parker Washington. He hit his tight end down the stream, and that guy actually dropped it, which is the other caveat, because it's true. You talk about Trevor Lawrence, you talk about all the bad things, but you have to bring up the Jaguars lead the entire freaking NFL in drop passes this year. And Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. weren't playing here like they haven't been the last few weeks, but he also couldn't really get too much going when they were playing. So just the whole experience makes my head hurt, Dwayne. I know it does yours too.
Yeah, it does. Look, Trevor Lawrence, gives, he takes away. There's nothing to add. Look, he ran the ball 5 times for 29 yards as well. The Jags are 7-4. Yeah. So they're winning football games. I don't think it's necessarily because Trevor Lawrence is playing great. Like I think things have come together for them. They've gotten some good breaks. I don't necessarily think that this is a great team, but I do think that they are. I do think that Liam Cohen has done a nice job of getting all these guys into roles, right, where they can succeed. And I think that just kind of leads us to the pass catchers, where Parker Washington, dude, he had a nice game today, 18.1 PPR points, 23% target share, led the team. He had 7 targets on the day, and he had a sweet touchdown catch in the back of the end zone. That was a great throw. That was a laser beam from Trevor Lawrence. One of those that, to your point, man, wow, he can throw the ball like that. Yes, he can. Then he can frustrate you on the very next play. Jacoby Myers was Parker Washington, 91% of the routes. Jacoby Myers also 91% of the routes. We did not have BTJ in this game, guys, but 20% target share to Myers. So he was right there behind Washington. Those are the main 2 guys. And we did get Brenton Strange back in the lineup, Ian. 14.3 PPR points from Brenton Strange. Nice. 5 targets, 5 catches, 71% route participation.
So could even see that increase. Brenton Strange, again, someone I honestly kind of put in that Theo Johnson tier, shout out Penn State, as someone who, again, can give us, low-end, borderline tight end 1 possibilities here, as long as his quarterback play is okay, which I do think, even with some of the interceptions in there, T-Law has proven capable of certainly at least being okay. So Tom Pelissero did say Brian Thomas has a good chance to play next week, and I do think that adds up given that he has been practicing in a limited fashion. So kudos to Jacoby Myers for scoring a touchdown. Our long national crisis is over. Dwayne, 60 long, cold targets without a score. He finally got one, which was great. And you mentioned Parker Washington. Guys, on punts, because people were ready to yell at Parker, the punting team, it's called the first touch rule. When they punt the ball down, if the punt team touches the ball in any capacity, the punt return team is then allowed to pick up that ball and run it. Even if they fumble the ball at a certain point and they lose it, they can still get the ball back where it was originally touched by the punt team. It's called the first touch rule. My high school coaches drove it into our skulls every Thursday before games. All right. So that is a rule. I saw Parker Washington pull it off. Someone else did it a couple of weeks ago. And people always say oh my God, what are they doing? That's so dangerous. Dwayne, one of the freaking refs put a safety up after it, and they had to correct that guy. So even some of the refs don't know about this rule, man. I was furious. So again, just wanted to shout that out. Parker Washington, cerebral out there and doing his thing.
Shout out to your high school coach as well.
Mark Hundley, man, the GOAT. Appreciate you, man. Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, they're not going to be in our top 36 with no buys and Brian Thomas Jr. back.
No, they won't. But wide receiver 4 territory. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence, man, we talk about the ups and downs of Trevor Lawrence. That's going to be what really holds him down.
We do have a decent enough schedule. Titans next week, Colts, Jets, no, Jets are fine. Broncos, Colts, So, all right, we got the Titans and the Jets too in the next 3 weeks. We'll see if they can take advantage of that. The big story here, Dwayne, the Bashaw Tootin takeover. Oh, I was in a different dimension. I'm sorry. Travis Etienne still the RB1 in Jacksonville. Surprise.
20.6 PPR points for Travis Etienne. He handled 64% of the snaps, 60% of the rushing attempts at 15, 13% target share. So he had 4 targets, 15 carries, 19 opportunities for Etienne versus 8 for Tootin. So Tootin, last week we did see early in the game where it was really a closer split between the two of them. But man, it's just a reminder, guys, everybody wants Tootin to happen so much that everyone just jumped the gun on it. And we like him and we talked about him, but we didn't project him that way. We even got a message in our projections chat this morning from Elliot Chris, our CEO, to me and Matthew Friedman, who do the projections. He's like, "Hey guys, the biggest difference I'm seeing in our projections versus really where everybody else is at is where we have Bajal Tutin." And Friedman and I walked him through like where we were at, and we had independently come to the same decision that, hey, we can't overreact to just that first half. We moved Bajal Tutin up our ranks some this week, guys. All of us did.
Yeah.
But from a projection standpoint, I've just seen this too many times. And again, I just felt the market was super frothy. So did Friedman. And look, it's not that we don't want Tutin to play well, guys. We do. Like, Ian, we have him on some of our teams. Yeah. Ian and I, we have our DMs, and we go back and forth with our start-sit questions, and we kind of prioritize our teams. And on one of them, I think Ian said maybe we sub out Chamiri DK for Bajal Tutin just to feel alive. So I did swap him in. But hey, we had DK in plenty of the other lineups, so it ended up being fine. But whatever. But yes, Travis Etienne still the running back one in Jacksonville. And it's just a reminder, guys, like, don't overreact too much to these small samples, especially when it's something that we've just wanted for so long. Like it's our bias to think that something's happening when it's maybe not.
The only thing that's annoyed me with the whole Tutin discourse is I felt like sometimes the conversation has tried to put ETN down. He's had a real nice bounce back season. Yeah, even today, man, 74 to 86 yards after contact. I'm not saying Tutin couldn't have made that or more out of the opportunity. I guess we'll never know, but I just don't think ETN's done anything to lose the job. Tutin, I've been shouting it out last handful of weeks, like whole season pretty much. He is one of the best handcuffs in fantasy football. I don't think a takeover is coming. So that is that. They're over with the Arizona Cardinals. Another 300-plus yard performance from Jacoby Brissett. Where has this been, Dwain? It's not like Jacoby just didn't have chances over the years.
Yeah, dude, he plays great in this scheme. All the play action stuff they're doing, they get under center, they marry the ground game with the pass game, even though like they get forced into these scripts like today where Jacoby's dropping back 49 times. And then ran the ball 3 times for 20 yards. So 18.7 PPR points. He finally didn't score over 20, but yes, another 300-yard game from Jacoby Brissett, man. And you can like say the same thing about Michael Wilson. What the heck, man? Like Michael Wilson, 2 games in a row. I mean, this is a guy that's in his 3rd year. We've never seen anything like this from Michael Wilson. I know there's truth. There's truthers for every player out there. So, I mean, I'm seeing the tweets now. I told you guys Michael Wilson was an awesome player. Okay. Well, none of his quarterbacks really thought he was that great, guys, because they weren't throwing him the ball. But man, 21.8 PPR points, 86% route participation. Dude had 15 targets. Like this is 2 games in a row with 15 plus targets. The last 2 games, Michael Wilson is averaging 27.8 fantasy points per game with a 32% target share. That's an average of 16.5 targets per game, Ian, with 152 air yards per game. What do you think happens when Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back?
Are they playing the Cowboys?
No, no, they don't get to do that again.
If you didn't know a single thing about Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr., we pulled like an alien. We trapped them in a basement and we just said, you need to watch every minute of the Cardinals team from the last 2 years. I think that alien would walk up to us and say Michael Wilson's better than Marvin Harrison.
I agree. Jr. They would. Dude, like the scheme is great. And Jacoby forces it to him in tight windows, but we get the same thing with JSN, and we don't down JSN for that. Like, yeah, JSN creates separation on plays too, guys. We get it, but tight window throws and being able to track the ball and make those kind of plays, and a quarterback that obviously trusts you in those situations, man, like Michael Wilson. Here's the thing. If they were just forcing stuff to Marvin Harrison Jr. before, I don't think they have to force it now. When they bring him back, like it's probably going to be bad for both of them, to be honest, but Wilson right now, I'm with you. I know it's only 2 games, but he's looked great.
Also looked great, Dwayne. Torch, Greg Dortch, another 53 yards and a touchdown. He had like negative yards, like 40 minutes into the game. So it was good to see him take that step forward. He'll probably really be the odd man out when Marv comes back. But I will say, man, I mean, yeah, Jacoby threw the ball 49 times and you can say like, oh, that's not going to happen every single week. He threw it 57 last week, 44 the week before that. I mean, is Trey Benson coming back really going to make them shift to this more run first ideology? And is this team even good enough to really play with a lead at any point in time? So I think, man, obviously Trey McBride's, continuing to crush it. Like 9 catches, 79 yards, and like you're almost disappointed. That's how spoiled we've gotten from Trey McBride. But Michael Wilson and Marv, while Wilson, if Marv's out again, Dwain, I know we ranked him as like our wide receiver 2021. I mean, next week they play the Buccaneers, bro. He might be a wide receiver. We're probably going to rank Michael Wilson over Justin Jefferson if Marvin Harrison is out. Do you realize how insane that is?
It is insane. It is insane. And it's only a 2-game sample, but he's just looked really good. And Jacoby's elevating everyone right now, man. And again, we've talked about this. Quarterbacks can get on a heater. They're just feeling it. Like it's just like they have that stroke. Like it's like the Steph Curry thing. Yeah. I don't know if Jacoby Brissett walks in and like the same guy, tosses him the ball like the Steph Curry, commercial every time before practice starts and he makes the same throw. But like he's in a zone right now. That's Jacoby Brissett.
One of my, I do my early week rankings article on Monday. One of my big topics already is just to go through all the Michael Wilson stuff and try to come away with a more clear conclusion. But yeah, the dude's absolutely balling, and you can just look at the numbers to see that for yourself. Otherwise, again, backfield was condensed between Bam Knight and Michael Carter. We don't know when Deemer Carter or Benson are going to be back. It does seem like Benson in particular will be back soon.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say here because I do think Benson has a good shot to return this week. It was just Knight leading the way on the ground, 59% of the attempts for 10 carries. And then it was Michael Carter getting more of the passing down work, 49% routes for him versus 25% for Knight. Knight did get some targets. He had 5 targets today, which was actually 2 more than what we got from Carter. But passing down's Carter. Knight, the early down back, my guess is when Trey Benson is back, he takes over that work. Knight's had maybe a little bit more on top of that, and then Carter's probably the passing down back.
And with that, let's get to Sunday Night Football. It's time for our DraftKings closing lines. Big games, big moments, and even bigger upside this week. I teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give you a new way to get in on the action. With Pick 6, you can ride the upside by making simple predictions. Will a player score more or less than the number listed? Stack your picks together, and the more you hit, the bigger your payout. And right now, guys, there's an incredible offer for new customers. Play $5 or more, and you'll get $50 in Pick 6 credits. That's right, new DraftKings customers play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly. So don't miss your shot to ride the upside. Download DraftKings Pick 6. Get on all the action and sign up using my promo code Fantasy Life. Thanks to DraftKings Pick 6 for sponsoring this. Let's make this NFL season one to remember. We had the Rams beat down the Buccaneers 34-7. This one was not close. Obviously, the Rams covered as 7-point faves. We did not quite get that over to cash at 49.5. So it was 31-7 at halftime. And then on the last play before the half, Baker tried to throw a Hail Mary and hurt his left shoulder. It was an injury that they showed him earlier in the game getting checked out. So I'm not sure if it was existing going in or what happened. Also was running all over the place, so maybe took some hits. Baker clearly not at a 100%. But we will start off with the Rams, Dwain, and just an immaculate performance from Matthew Stafford. I mean, 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. He started 18 for 21 with north of 200 there. So balls were not hitting the turf, but there was Devontae Adams just continuing to shred inside the 5-yard line and also a little bit downfield today. Or Puka Nacua, who they just kind of pull out when they just need a 15-yard gain here or there, Dwayne, because it's that easy in LA apparently. Just incredible, man. And for my money's worth, they look like the best team in football.
Yep, they look great. Stafford throws for over 2 touchdowns. It feels like every single game. He had 3 tonight, Ian. So, yeah, Matthew Stafford absolutely dealing. Probably QB 10, 9, somewhere in there rest of the season, mainly just because, he's a drop back guy. Actually, I don't know, man. Like maybe Stafford's QB 6 at this point. Like once you get past the guys that run, it's probably, it's Stafford, and May runs enough though. Right. So, I mean, he's QB 6-ish, I would say the rest of the way, just absolutely in the zone.
He's just on the top of the tier with the other guys. And like, unfortunately, I thought Caleb Williams could maybe get there, but we've gone over that schedule. So
I hear Dak's there. Dak's in the mix with that, but there's like 2 or 3 guys right there, but Stafford and Dak, like they're right there.
I mean, it could come down to matchups a little bit, but Panthers, Cardinals, Lions. Okay, the Seahawks are tough in week 16, and the Falcons, man. So at least 4 of those 5 games, going to be feeling awfully great about it. Didn't get anything going on with the running backs. It did seem like still kind of the usual 66-33 roll for Kyron.
Yep, same thing. No points tonight for Kyron, 5.8 PPR, but yes, same splits.
Just, again, they get down to 1. Dude, they went Puka fade. No. Oh, Adams, you want another one? No. Okay, we'll throw a touchdown to Colby Parkinson. did we see Colby emerge? Because he caught one, he got close on another one. This was the first game without Tyler Higbee.
I mean, 14.1 PPR points. He did lead the tight ends, but it was with a 53% route participation. Davis Allen was behind him at 42%. Then we had Terrence Ferguson at 22%.
Same old deal. Okay, we'll move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, we'll find out what happened with Baker Mayfield's shoulder. Certainly not good. It is the left shoulder, so hopefully it's like a Jordan Love situation where he can play through the pain. Obviously, Baker has all that dog in him. Would expect him to, do everything he can to be out there on the football field. In the running back room, Dwain, did we see Sean Tucker continue to build off that big game and work well ahead of Rachaad White?
Yeah, 48% of the design rushing attempts. So, I mean, he's the lead ball carrier on the ground as long as we don't have Bucky Irving. And then you have Rachaad White taking the passing down work. 62% route participation for White tonight, 29% for Tucker. So pretty clear-cut roles when we don't have Bucky. Sean Tucker, the primary ball carrier, giving away few of the carries to Rachaad White. Rachaad White, the primary passing down back.
Trying to find a report now. I did believe they were saying Bucky Irving could be back as soon as week 13. So hopefully it would be a lot cooler if he is. Would, maybe pump the brakes just a little bit in the first game back. But that said, the fact they are taking their time getting him back into action gives me more hope that it will be, 100% Bucky as soon as he is able. Otherwise, cool touchdown by Tez Johnson immediately after he had a not so cool screenplay where he kind of ran into his blocker, but hey, scored the next play anyway. So let bygones be bygones. Another, somewhat unfortunate dud from Emeka Egbuka, but still earned 8 targets out there, Dwain. And just, again, it's 6 weeks sample size that we're kind of basing on him still being awesome. And now we're growing another sample size of him being more of a wide receiver 3. But when the good 6 week sample size is coming with him at full health and literally had him working as like a 20 plus fantasy point per game guy, I'm still pretty sure Emeka Egbuka is awesome. Maybe it's a bit more in the wide receiver 2 range than wide receiver 1 range.
Yeah, Egbuka's still playing well. I mean, again, when you get the targets and you're getting the air yards, which he did again tonight, now the Baker thing is obviously a big question. Like, what happens with Baker Mayfield? That hurts because Baker's very willing to push the ball downfield to Emeka Egbuka, and that gives you the opportunity to hit the big plays. Teddy Bridgewater could do that, but historically has not really been that. We've seen flashes of that from Teddy Bridgewater. But that wouldn't necessarily be an ideal scenario for Egbuka, just as far as the ceiling would be concerned on a week-to-week basis. Obviously, Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. He's proven that over the last 2 years. But yeah, with Egbuka, all the underlying stuff is still there. Like, he's just basically ran bad. I mean, and it happens. Like, it happens to these guys. So if we get Baker back and he's healthy, I would still bet on Egbuka, eventually turning things around and he would get on another hot streak. These things happen. I know it sounds weird, but just to your point, everybody thought he was like a top 10 wide receiver after the first 6 games. And now what? People want to call him a wide receiver 4. We know what his ceiling is, but I think it's fine if you want to call him more of a high end wide receiver 2 than, a wide receiver 1 the rest of the way.
Again, he was seen wearing a sling in the second half. Okay, here's Rapture. He suffered a sprained left shoulder. He'll have an MRI tomorrow to determine the full extent of the injury. So we'll know more, and I'm sure we'll get a million tweets about it from the insiders as soon as that becomes public information. Funny how that works. So otherwise, guys, the one thing I will say with Baker, part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers DST, all right, there's 3 factors, okay? It's one, tonight was not a good look, but generally this is a good real-life defense, a good enough real-life defense, okay? We want a good schedule, and they have that. They got the Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, and Dolphins rounding out. That's great. You do need to stay competitive and be we see this with Cleveland, okay? That's an incredible defense, but when we had Dylan Gabriel, throwing 3 picks and taking 5 sacks, you can't expect the defense to keep picking up the slack. If we do go from Baker to Teddy Bridgewater, I'm not 100% out on the Tampa Bay DST, but that hurts everyone involved a lot.
Yeah, it does hurt. I mean, I think that Bridgewater is capable of driving the bus. The challenge is for the Bucs, how many games have they lost in a row now? Is this 3 or 4?
3.
Yeah, I mean, they're on a tough losing streak. They're in a division that's obviously still very winnable, between them and the Panthers really battling for it. The Falcons got to win. They'll try to claw their way back in, but it's them and the Panthers. So my gut says they're going to try to run the ball more. They're going to try to run the ball more with Teddy Bridgewater. So we'll see where it lands, but I do agree. You'd rather have a quarterback that can also build a big lead right away. And we know that Baker's capable of doing that. He was doing it early in the season because when your defense knows what the offense is doing, when you know that they have to pass the ball, well, then they're more likely to get picks. You're more likely to get the sacks because the other team has to throw the ball more. Then you get the strip fumbles. You get opportunities for, the touchdowns on defense. All those things feed off of playing with some leading scripts, which definitely takes a hit if Baker's not going to be in the game.
And with that, we are done. 12 weeks down, still 5 more to go. No time to get complacent, everyone. And accordingly, Dwain, you will have the utilization report up sometime tomorrow.
Sometime tomorrow. Try to have it up by 5 or 6 for you guys.
God, you are fantastic. Appreciate you. I know everyone else does as well. And I appreciate all you guys tuning in to the Fantasy Life Show. If you like the show, then please like the show, and always hitting that subscribe button helps us out as well. So for Dwain, for producer Mick, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, take care, everybody.